Okay, well, it was a really long time ago. If I find it, I can always send you the link,
Yeah, please.
like afterwards. Yeah. Because I'll definitely look into that for you, and I'll try to find it for you. Because my friend that told me about the band is another Christian that lives in a different state, listens to rock music.
Okay, gotcha. Well, do you have anything else?
Um, okay. Just demonic possession, because you were talking about it. The people that have typically only been possessed are people who think of possession.
Yeah, people who already
Um,
believe in it.
yeah. Don't you think that maybe sometimes, like, souls can be compromised? I think souls can be compromised and allow certain things into their life. Or, for example, hypochondriacs that always tend to get sick, they kind of like are obsessing over it to the point where they cause a sickness or illness to themselves, like almost manifesting this is like kind of like perpetual pain. Like
So
they're like a, you know what I'm saying?
kind of, yeah. So first of all, I don't believe in souls, so I don't know if I can believe in like a soul being compromised. But second of all, that I just don't believe in this, right? Like atheists would obviously have the more compromised soul in your worldview, which means that presumably we would expect more demonic possessions, when in fact, all the accounts that I've ever seen say that the person already believed in demonic possession. It's just people manifesting things that they already believed in.
Okay. Um, so us having different views, it does make the argument kind of um, it does obviously make an argument because I do think that we have souls or spirits, or even in other views, like some people believe consciousness is a just an energy that we end up giving back into the universe. I don't exactly know the scope of your realms and what you believe.
I don't know what any of that means, to be honest. I don't
Okay.
believe in like a spiritual realm. I don't believe anything supernatural. You would need to prove that any of these things are real. You would need to prove that like a soul is real. You would just need to demonstrate to me that any of these things actually exist.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, what do you believe? Are you atheist? Are you agnostic?
I'm
What
an
is your
atheist. Yeah,
Okay. Do you believe shoot, so you just believe that there's no creator at all?
I have no reason to think that there is one. Actually, yeah, I actively do think that there's no creator, not like a mind conscious creator, not one that existed like outside of time.
Okay. Um Let me think on this because I do have insightful thoughts on this. I feel like um hold on. Give me a topic. Throw something at me.
Okay, kids with cancer.
Okay, kids with cancer. Don't you think that also what we consume might affect or change or like DNA and make us more susceptible to cancer causing
Yeah,
things such
yeah,
as like the
that it certain
carcinogens we assume
it
consume?
certainly does, but the ultimate cause of cancer is just the way that our cells are structured. Despite what makes cancer more or less likely, the ultimate fact of the matter is just going to be that cancer comes because, in your worldview, the way that God designed our cells, that they're designed in such a way that they need to replicate 30 or 3 billion nucleotide pairs in an exact order, and they mess up all of the time. They drop the ball constantly on that, and for that fact, our cells get mutations all of the time. And inside of me, inside of you, inside of every single audience member is cancer, just because our cells have dropped the ball so frequently on replicating properly. So the ultimate blame, even if it is partially caused by the things that we consume, ultimately what it's going to come back to is the way that God designed our anatomy. So why would God design our anatomy in a way such that people can get cancer at all?
But all of our anatomies are different. I think it also can depend on the culture in which you were raised, where you were raised, how you were raised. I think it can be psychological development. I think it could be physiological development, such as trauma to the body at early age. I think it could be a plethora of things that can cause these cancer causing. If you're saying from birth, that if you're talking about birth cancer cells, that can come from something in the womb that happened in utero. I mean, I feel like there's
So
plethora.
our cellular anatomy is mostly the same. There might be variations in some people. Some people's cellular anatomies might be messed up for a variety of reasons, but typically when your cellular anatomy is messed up, you just get miscarried. if it's like a severe mess up. I'm not sure of the person who is incapable of getting cancer. There's just so many ways to get it from so many different mutations.
And I feel like that's the point. That's the point. That you know, that's the point, that there is so many other ways to develop cancer or get cancer or something like that. I feel like there's just so many ways. So why pin it to one thing?
Because so if God made our anatomy differently, nobody would have cancer. So why wouldn't God pick the no cancer anatomy instead of the cancer anatomy? Why does God prefer cancer?
I wouldn't say that he prefers it. Granted, like, I'm not him, and and again, previous people, like they've said on your debate, like, we don't know his plan, and I think it was built into our plot to be imperfect.
So your perfect God included a design flaw?
I mean, he can do it. Why not?
Because then he would just be responsible for giving people cancer. In the same way that an engineer who intentionally leaves in a design flaw is responsible for all the harm that design flaw causes, God would be directly responsible for all the people who are unalived by cancer. So are you of the opinion that God is responsible for all the people who are unalived by cancer?
No, because I think there's a plethora of other things that can cause that.
Yeah, but the thing that is ultimately going to be the cause of it, in addition to mutations, is just the way that our cells are structured at all. That God could have structured our cells in a way where it's not even a problem to begin with. And healthy people, people who are 100% healthy, can still get cancer just by things going awry in your cells, just based on the way that they're built.
Okay, why is the pin on God and not the paternal and the maternal figures
Because
in
God
this? Why aren't
designed
they
the
being
cellular
accounted for?
anatomy.
What about the people that created the child?
I mean, God designed the cellular anatomy. So if God's all knowing, then God designed the cellular anatomy knowing that this specific cellular anatomy would allow people to get cancer. God knew that the way he designed it would allow people to get cancer. God designed it the exact same way anyway, didn't make any changes, and now people have cancer. So God knowingly designed it with a design flaw that included people getting cancer. People got cancer. God's the engineer, so God's responsible.
Okay, let me think on this one for a minute. I mean, it pretty much just goes to show that, you know, we are imperfect. There is flaws, and yes, like you said, it comes down to cellular anatomy. Um, and if he and God continues to replicate this cellular anatomy, um, so your issue is that he allowed this imperfection to continue to replicate.
Not allowed. It's that God made the decision to give us this cellular imperfection in your worldview, which means that God made the decision for people to get cancer when he could have made he could have just made like the repair mechanism. So our cells, when they mess up via like mutations, they attempt to repair themselves, but your repair mechanism is also imperfect. So God could have avoided this very easily by just giving you like a perfect repair mechanism, or made it such that these mutations just don't happen at all. God could have done either of these things, and cancer would have been just an impossibility.
Okay, and is there a age frame that you are most concerned about this, the cancer, like particularly children,
Um,
like for a
I
particular
think
age?
the hardest one for theists to explain would be like an 18-year-old or like a 16-year-old who's unalived by cancer. I don't think theists have any explanation for a 16-year-old who lives a healthy life who is unalived by cancer just because their cells mess up.
Um, well, I feel like there's so many, again, cells. So, for example, radiation. Okay, so the earbuds you're using, the AirPods I'm using, they emit like EMF, or getting X-rays done at a dental office. They release radiation, which compromise um, us on a cellular level, which it changes them. I feel like there's other things that can change our um, cellular format that can make us more susceptible to erratic uh, changes in the body, whether that's cancer or other terminally ill diseases.
Yeah, so why wouldn't God just give us like the like a perfect repair mechanism that made it such that anytime our DNA got mutated, that it would just unmutate via the repair mechanism? Why wouldn't God prefer that? This world where nobody has cancer, which means that nobody has to lose their 16-year-old to cancer.
I think we're given free will, and we're also as Christians, we endure trials and tribulations partially to build character, whether that's for a parent if they lose, a child to cancer, because it says we're here for long-term suffering, and right now the devil has reign of the earth, the world. So God's not here with us walking this earth, whether in spirit. The devil has reign of everything right now. So everything that goes on, like cancer and diseases, I think it all comes from a evil source.
So, and I just want to be clear. Well, okay, there's like a couple of things. There's like three things here. The first is free will. No, that's not true. Of course, like healthy people who do literally everything right can still get cancer, which means that cancer can't be ultimately explained by free will. There's still some people who unjustly get cancer. The second thing you said was about how God gives people cancer to like test them or to like teach them lessons. That's like super cruel that God would take a 16-year-old away with cancer just to teach parents a lesson. That also leads to like absurdities. If you take like a Muslim 16-year-old who's unalived by cancer, that this person, in your worldview, presumably goes straight to hell, and they don't get to live their full life. They go straight to hell. Their parents also go to hell, and then they lost their kid from cancer. I don't think that makes any sense. I think it's super cruel. And then the third explanation of Satan, well, we just know that's not true. We don't need to speculate. We know where cancer comes from. It's not Satan. It comes from mutations in your cell, the cell that God designed. And also, I mean, if Satan is the one doing cancer, then I guess my question for you would just be, why doesn't Satan give cancer to all the non-believers so that he can bring them into his domain immediately? Why wouldn't he just kill all the non-believers?
Okay, so I want to comment on pretty much everything you said, so I
Yeah, go
might
for
have
it.
to repeat you back, like backtrack a little bit. Um, so the trials and tribulations, if a 16-year-old Muslim Muslim dies, I do think I'm not saying that he or she is going to go straight to hell. I think there's a chance of redemption once the physical body passes, and since I believe that there is a soul, I think that there is a chance of redemption between um, leaving, dying on Earth. I think there's a moment and a chance for you know redemption when we meet our Maker, um, and I also think that uh, you say
There's the free will one, and there was the Satan one.
yeah. So Satan giving everyone cancer and taking everyone else to his domain. His one goal is to distract from God, whether that's whether that's in the music that we listen to today, whether that's gaming or something. I think it's just to distract, and I think um, he just wants to distract people from God to feel more powerful or feel like he has more control or more power.
Okay, so there's like two things here. So if Satan is just doing this to distract everyone from God, then it seems logical that he could make people distracted forever from God by unaliving all the non-believers, bringing them to hell, and then they're permanently distracted because they're in hell forever. But you think that there's like a chance of redemption after, so maybe that's fine. But so you say that there's not straight to hell, but then I think like the question that's just like glaring at me is, so was there literally no other way for God to teach whatever lesson he's trying to teach, whichever like sick lesson that he's trying to teach to these parents? There was no way to teach this lesson to these parents absent taking their 16-year-old away with cancer? That was the only way?
Um, and I will say too, like, you know, it, there, the world that we live in is cruel. Whether it's being tainted by unforeseen beings or figures, whether it's um, what is going on with um, other higher powers. Uh, but I do there. I'm sure there's other ways. I'm sure there's other ways to give a lesson, so to say. Um, but and yes, it can be cruel. And who's to say it's not? It might not even be. It might not even necessarily be a punishment. It might just be character development and character growth that this trial or tribulation is placed upon this family, whether they're Christian or not. I believe everyone faces struggles, and that's trials and tribulations.
Well, so the person who, do you know who doesn't get to learn any lessons from a 16-year-old being unalived by cancer? Who doesn't get to like experience like immense character growth? The
The
16-year-old,
16-year-old.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
who is unalived by cancer. This person's existence, and maybe some people learn something, maybe they find some value in it, but for many 16-year-olds who are unalived by cancer, it's they're confined to like a hospital bed, and then they get unalived by cancer, and it's horrible. I just don't think. I think that this is an insanely cruel and an insanely unjust way for a loving God to teach any lesson to anyone. That to me is just unimaginable. That a loving God would teach people lessons by giving 16-year-olds cancer.
Yeah, I hear you. I do. Who's to say that this 16-year-old is not going to go to live in eternal joy with the Lord? I know you don't believe that, but I'm just saying, what's to say the grass is not greener on the other side? What
Why
if it
why couldn't
is?
both be true? Why couldn't the 16-year-old after they live their full life and reach the age of like 80, why couldn't they then go and spend eternity with the Lord? Why is them being unalived at the age of 16 by cancer necessary for them to enjoy the afterlife? Why couldn't they both live a full life and then also enjoy the afterlife?
That's God's plan. That is what God had planned for them, and his plan was for his child to be with him. I
Gotcha. Wait,
mean,
so do you think that all mutations are God's plan?
they could be, they could not be. I think it could be a yes for some and maybe a no for others.
So I think that a bigger problem with the cellular anatomy, other than the cancer, which I'm like unconvinced by some of the responses, but a bigger problem in my mind, there's a syndrome called Lesch-Nyhan syndrome, which causes 2-year-old babies to attempt to like stab sharp things into their face and eyes. 85% of people with Lesch-Nyhan syndrome succeed in seriously injuring themselves. So this also results just from the way that our cells are built and the way that mutations happen. So why would God's plan include like 2-year-olds attempting to stab their own eyes out compulsively without any control on their part?
Um, okay, and you said that this is a cellular mutation.
Yeah, it's a syndrome. It's something that affects people based on mutations that happen early on in their development.
Okay, and is this post birth? So not something happening in utero.
I think it actually does happen in utero.
Okay. Um, do you, do you not think that maybe that there's external forces that we may, whether it's spiritual, which I know you don't believe, or even physical, like something that we may consume that could cause these mutations in utero? For example, antibiotics, and
So
I've seen it firsthand.
So first of all, that sounds like dangerous misinformation saying that antibiotics cause dangerous, like deadly mutations. You should definitely stop saying that. But in addition, no, healthy people still give birth to babies who have this. That you can do everything right, and your baby can still have a syndrome which causes them to compulsively, like self harm and attempt to stab their eyes out with sharp things.
Okay, and I want to re-clarify. I don't mean like causing such syndromes. I mean, for example, certain antibiotics can cause dental dysfunction once the child is born, such as an enamel defect, cause like enamel hypoplasia. It's has to do with the minerals that build the teeth, right? Sometimes it can just affect how the enamel forms. Creating white spots is nothing major, like a compulsive syndrome that you're talking about.
That
But
might all be true. I have no idea.
yeah, I'm making a simple example, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't saying anything dangerous. I was just using a very simple example. Um, but going back to the question, I think it can be from what we can what we consume, or maybe it was built into the design. I think there's a plethora of reasons. I'm
Why would God build that
not
into the
God's.
design?
I don't I don't know. I'm not God. And I'm not saying that that's every case. You know, other cases might be different. And if we look at each of these pregnant women that have um, these children with this syndrome, I think we should look deeper into their genetic makeup, and maybe it's a gene that
So
triggers something in that.
yeah, so we know one of the causes of this is these things that God must have also included, called mobile elements. These are they're called jumping genes. They either will like cut and paste themselves elsewhere, causing severe genetic mutations, or they'll like copy and paste themselves elsewhere, causing severe genetic mutations very frequently. They're extremely harmful and they provide you no benefit. So this would the syndrome comes about via these harmful genetic mutagens, which are just inherent to the genome itself, to the DNA itself. These things are present. I don't know where these came from, but if God designed our anatomy, presumably they came from God.
Um, Potentially, I think there is potential there for that to be one way, but I'm just saying I don't think that that is the only way that we can get this same result, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I'm not. This isn't like speculation. This is like we know that this is one of the primary causes of this disease. It seems like there's at least some instances where God has chosen to give a specific kid a disease that causes them to like attempt to gouge their own eyes out, and that's just horrific. I don't know how a loving God, a God who loves me in the same way that I love people, could ever possibly justify doing something as horrific as that.
Okay, do you know, so you're bringing up a syndrome, and how many reported deaths actually come from this syndrome? Do you know?
Oh, well, it's so the syndrome, yeah, all of them. Because these people only live until like 20 years old because of complications with the syndrome.
You said till twenty
Yeah,
years
this
old?
so it does like other stuff as well, and this like other stuff causes them to only live to like 20 years.
Okay, so they don't die from compulsively stabbing themselves.
No, no, but that's like it's horrific that like them compulsively stabbing themselves would be a symptom of a disorder that God has chosen people to have. That, if I were a loving God, I would give this to no one.
Yeah, so I think that because of the so they don't die. So what is to say that yes, this unfortunate syndrome affects the child, but who's to say that the real, like, the the meaning behind it, which we don't know, or the reason behind it, which we don't know, isn't for that this child needs extra care, extra love, extra nurture, you know? Like,
So on face, I think that there's like my intuition is screaming that nothing could possibly redeem a disease which causes 2-year-olds to attempt to gouge their own eyes out. That there is nothing in the world that could possibly make it worth it for the 2-year-old to endure it, for their parents to endure it, for their siblings to endure it. Nothing in the world could possibly make up for a syndrome that horrific.
what if it's to turn another family to faith?
Why can't they turn another family to faith in like any one of a
Another
million other
way?
ways? Why couldn't you just like pop into their living room and be like, "Hey, what's up? I'm God. I'm real. I'm the Christian God. Convert to Christianity." And then they all convert to Christianity. Why does it need
Because
to be a 2-year-old attempting to gouge their own eyes out?
that's a good question, but again, that plan isn't for us to know. And you know what? Um, yes, there like it is horrific. I'm not disagreeing with you that. Um, but I also believe, I know there's some scripture in there, but um, God gives some of his hardest challenges to his strongest. So, if you're going to take the worst of the worst, if you even look at people personal growth, they come from the worst of the worst experiences and rebuild themselves into amazing characters. And that is not the case for everyone. Some people succumb to um, their struggles or their trials, whereas other people make nothing but the best out of it. And you take every moment that you do have and be grateful for it.
So,
Like so.
oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Please
go ahead. Sorry.
finish. Oh, I was just
No,
gonna
no, 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 no.
comment. So these 2-year-olds, in addition to that, they also they're severely mentally disabled. That's another thing the syndrome does. I just find it quite hard to believe that a severely mentally disabled 2-year-old is God's strongest soldier, who he's giving the challenge of like gouging their own eyes out. Like he's making like severely mentally disabled 2-year-olds gouge their own eyes out. Like I couldn't come up with something more evil than that if I tried. Like that's just horrific.
Okay, I was referencing the parents as being the strongest warriors because they're the ones responsible for the child at the age that it's at, and clearly a child can't take care of itself. Um, and so that's what I was referencing. I was referencing the parents being the capable providers and nurturers.
Yeah, that's I mean that's cool. I just don't know. I don't know what possibly like it just seems like there's a million other ways. If God's all powerful, certainly he has the power to bring about whatever outcome he wants that doesn't involve like 2-year-olds gouging their own eyes out.
Yes. And I see your argument, and like I said, there's a method to the madness, and we may not know what that is. There's a exterior ultra motive that we don't know, and quite frankly, what God decides to do is unfathomable. It may not be fathomable to me or you.
Yeah, it's like deeply unfathomable, and in fact, um, seemingly impossible that a loving God would work through such horrific means. So, do you have anything else? Otherwise, I do feel like we're probably just going in circles. But it was a great conversation. I love talking to you.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I was going to say it was getting in circles there, but no, I did enjoy talking to you too. If I see you on live and I'm ever on TikTok, I'll definitely request to join again.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and I will say just one more last thing to add is God was a lot less merciful before Jesus came and saved us all, and that is the good news, is that we are all saved through Jesus Christ, and that is when God became more forgiving, when he took all of our sins upon himself
All right. Well,
and died for us.
yeah, I appreciate you coming on up here.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, you as well. make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff that gets it in front of the algorithm. If you're 18 or older, or so if you're in that guest request box, make sure that you are 18 or older, that you believe in the God of the Bible, Torah, or Quran, and that you have an argument which does not involve personal experience. Cameron, thank you so much for the $1 on Venmo. Big W, Cameron, in that comment or in that comment section. I agree, Cameron. But if anybody else wants to support the stream, the Venmo's allegedly dash Ian. The Cash App is just allegedly Ian. Both of them are in my bio. I appreciate it. It allows me to go live for longer. And also, if you want to support the stream, I get more of it, because otherwise TikTok takes half if you donate through the stream. But I appreciate all of your gifts. Sorry, my head is like a little bit turned. My camera is off. I'm trying to not look over too much. Or attempting to do so less. But with that, we'll go to the very next guest. Yeah. Apparently my best friend saw me on YouTube on the YouTube Shorts feed. So we are multi-platform streaming on YouTube and Twitch. So if you'd prefer to watch this on YouTube or Twitch, the YouTube is allegedly dash Ian and the Twitch is just allegedly Ian. Consider joining. Give it a subscription to help me monetize it. Hey, what's up? How's it going?
We're freaking on. Hold on. Let me fix my camera. Why I can't do it?
I think it won't allow it. But.
All right, whatever. Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I'm 20 and my sister is 18.
Okay. And what religion?
We're Christian.
Okay. What's your strongest argument for the existence of God that does not involve personal experience?
Actually, we've been watching for a while, and we just want to touch on some key points that you kind of made.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Yeah, go for it. Which point do you want to talk about first?
So
Let's go one at a time.
Yeah. We'll go one at a time. We're just gonna take turns. Exactly. So the first one was that anything that cannot be understood by logic is nonsense. Is that your point on that?
That anything that actively violates the laws of logic is nonsense. That if it can both be true, that the sun exists and doesn't exist at the same time, then anything can be true. We just live in a nonsensical world at that point.
I'm sorry, so was that a yes or no?
Mostly, yeah. Basically, yeah.
Okay.
That anything that
So-
violates logic. So I guess maybe the answer is no. And the correction, the slight adjustment that I'm giving you is that anything that violates the laws of logic is nonsense. That's my opinion. That's my position.
Violate the laws
Of logic.
And
Is
what
nonsense.
could you give me one premise on what the laws of logic are?
Yeah, so an example of the laws of logic are like A is A, so like a cup is a cup, the law of non-contradiction, that, a proposition and its negation can't be true, that the sun can't both exist and also not exist at the exact same time, that if something is true, then it's not false. It's either true or false.
Okay, so that would kind of render your point about God not being explained by logic redundant, because there are plenty of things that we know to be true that cannot be explained by logic or through the rules of logic that we all still know are true. Like, for example, we all know that we experience human thoughts. Like, in our brain, we know that we experience human thoughts. How can that be explained by logic?
So that's more of like a science question, right? So that wouldn't be a violation of logic. Like, all of the laws of logic are in line with us experiencing thoughts. So the way I would explain with science how we experience thoughts is that this is just the experience of your brain creating like these like thoughts for you via neural pathways and chemical reactions. That this is a neurological process.
So you're saying logic and science are separate?
Well, logic seems to fall more under philosophy, but science is a branch of philosophy. It stemmed out from philosophy. So I would consider all the things in science to follow a logical progression to them. So all the things in science are going to be logical. But I don't know. They're different fields, certainly. Yeah, the study of logic is not a scientific study.
So are you saying that science is not logical?
Science is logical.
Okay, I want to move on to the other thing that you mentioned. You said something about possession. You said that atheists don't get possessed. And when you look at it, I'm just going to say it. So either you're alive or you're dead. Either you're with God or you're not. So clearly, if you're an atheist, what would a demon want to do with you? If and I'm gonna give you like a little analogy. If you're playing freeze tag and you already tagged somebody and they're frozen, would you go touch the frozen person, or would you go touch the person that's running?
Well, so the reason why this analogy isn't really going to make sense or work is because if you believe in demons, if you believe in demonic possession, and then you experience what you think to be a demonic possession, then you're super going to believe in demons and super going to believe in demonic possession. That's going to make you so much stronger in your belief that a god exists if you think you were possessed by demons. So, I wouldn't touch the person in the game of freeze tag who's already frozen, but a correct analogy, the logical thing for the demons to do would be to not touch anybody. That if they don't want people to believe in God, then they shouldn't make their presence known to anyone.
That's not honestly true, because the demon's whole point is to get you away from God. They want you to not be able to be with God, because the whole point is to be with God. Everyone wants to be with God unless, you feel some type of way or whatever. But the demons are trying to steer you away from God, and they want you to sin, and they want to get you trapped in sin, because sin is something that you do against God, something that you do to offend God. So that's exactly what a demon wants you to do. If you are already doing that, they have no use for you. They're going to target the people that believe in God.
Yeah, so the problem is, so we could just go through like the decision chart, right? That from the demon's perspective, the logical thing for them to do is to not possess anyone, because if you possess someone, if all they do is think that demons are real, maybe they'll be swayed out of this into like atheism at some point later because they've never had like any personal experience with it. But when you actually give them the personal experience, then they're never going to give it up. Which means that if a demon were to possess somebody who already believed in demons, that it would just strengthen their belief that demons actually exist. If demons actually exist, then they know that God actually exists. So if they know that God actually exists, if they're absolutely certain of it, and this only came about because the demons possessed them, then the demons actually brought them closer to God, which means the logical thing for the demons to do would be to not possess anybody.
Okay, so the argument against that is that just because that's a possibility, it's a possibility that the experience of a demon could strengthen someone's faith in God, but I feel like that doesn't discount the fact that 9 times out of 10, a person will be scared to engage with God, because most times when demons attack, as we've seen, is that when demons attack people, they are scared to get in their relationship with God, because the closer you get to God, the more attacked you're going to be by demons, because they want to scare you away. So they're going to take that risk of, let's say they're going to come.
Thank you
with
so
their
much for the
hardest.
gem gun. Big W squish love. Appreciate that.
They're going to come their hardest to try to scare you away, taking the risk that it strengthens your relationship with God. That's not an absolute that an experience with a demon is going to strengthen your relationship with God. It's just not guaranteed.
Can you give me an example of someone who got possessed and is now an atheist?
No.
Okay. Well,
I don't know everyone's personal experience. That doesn't mean it didn't happen.
I mean, if you can't even provide like a single personal experience, because I could probably provide you lots of people. I bet I could pull up
When
like
you
any
started
number of like I was possessed by a demon story, and all of these people still believe in God.
When you start off with a guess, you tell us not to bring up any personal experiences.
Well, yeah, and I mean, both of you, if either one of you is possessed, if that's your personal experience, then this is evidence for my argument that getting possessed by a demon actually makes you a stronger believer in God. Because both of you are presumably still Christian.
Always. I also have a question. Do you believe in evolution?
Yeah.
So, do you believe that people evolved from monkeys?
No.
Okay, so how do you think humans became to be?
through a long strain of things. So humans right now, currently, humans are great apes. We're great apes with gorillas, orangutans, bonobos, chimpanzees. I think there might be more, but we're great apes. Our ancestors are apes. If you go back far enough, our ancestors will just be mammals. If you go back farther than that, I think our ancestors will just be like vertebrates. And if you go back like farther and farther and farther, eventually you'll get to like a single-celled organism. That's roughly the chain of evolution.
Right. So I'm saying, so evolution. So you think that we came from apes? Apes turned into humans?
No, humans are apes. Ape is like an umbrella category, and humans are a member of this umbrella category. Humans are apes.
So you're trying to say we just was always this way from the beginning, or were you saying that we were apes that evolved to look like how we look now?
So in the beginning, there was a single-celled organism that all the evidence points to came via abiogenesis. The single-celled organism underwent evolution, became complex and different. Its ancestors, offsprings. Eventually, it evolved into mammals, and then these mammals evolved into a wide variety of different things. One of these things is apes, and then if you follow the chain of apes, you'll get lots of things, but one of the things that you'll get is humans.
All right, so you believe in abiogenesis, of course. That's a thing that happened. How come we can't replicate that?
So the reason why we can't replicate it is because it's still a relatively recent hypothesis and theory. So we can replicate the key steps of it pretty well. For example, we have no problem recreating like a self-replicating molecule. We have no problem replicating like a molecule with metabolism. Science is a process. It doesn't happen instantly. Give it time, and I bet we probably will.
So that's a maybe.
Yeah, yours is your hypothesis is that God said abracadabra and then the world appeared, and then God said alakazam and then life appeared. So if you want to go evidence for evidence, there's more evidence for abiogenesis than there is for God saying abracadabra and then all life on earth appeared.
You said that abiogenesis was a recent thing.
Yeah, it's like relatively recent.
Yeah, but your whole point was that, because I believe you said something earlier that the Earth was around for you said 8,000 years ago.
Earth has been around for 4.5 billion years.
All right, so that's a recent thing. But you said that the Earth was always there. So that would confirm abiogenesis that it just, yes, you did. You said that earlier. So how did
the universe has always existed. The Earth has not always existed. The Earth is around 4.5 billion years old. The universe, I think, stretches back infinitely.
Is there proof of the universe stretching back infinitely?
Yeah, the quantum eternity theorem. So all the evidence for quantum mechanics supports the quantum eternity theorem, which would indicate that the universe has always existed and has always been changing.
So the things about a theorem is a theorem because why is it not a law?
Oh, so a theorem is different than a theory. So a theory is going to be a how explanation based on a mountain of evidence, whereas a theorem is going to be a derivation based on an equation.
Okay, so theorems are
theorems are the result of an equation. I couldn't give you an example absent like an equation in front of me, but.
Okay, my question is: are theorems are they the same validity of laws?
Well, theorems are deductive, so if quantum mechanics is true, then this theorem is also true.
If.
Okay, so the answer is no?
I'd probably say... Well, it depends what you mean, because if you take quantum mechanics to be indicative of the laws of physics, then, yeah, it's just going to be a derivation of those laws.
So it doesn't seem to be as valid as a law, though, which is why...
depending on what you mean by that, it probably actually is the same level of validity.
Depends on what I mean?
Yeah, it depends what you mean by that. Unless you reject, quantum mechanics, then this would be the same level as a law.
It would be on the same level as a law, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. The most prominent point that we have in general is that since God is above our understanding and above the things that humans use to understand each other and the things around them, he's not held to the same standard as the things that we believe in. He is above what we consider to be science, because science helps us understand the things around us. God is above us. That's the whole point. And there's nothing like substantial enough to prove that God is not above us and that he is not held to the same standard that we use to understand the things around us.
Well, does God transcend everything, including logic?
That's something that humans use.
Oh,
God
okay.
is not bound by logic. Yeah.
So could God make himself not exist?
Theoretically, he could. What reason would he have to do
Well,
that?
I'm just asking. I'm just exploring the if God is illogical, if he exists past the confines of logic. I'm just seeing like what would be the case in your worldview. So God has the power to make himself not exist. So let's say that God
He has the
makes
power to
himself
do
not
all
exist.
things.
Could God then, in his non-existence, bring himself back into existence? Does God, if he makes himself non-existent, have the power to bring himself back into existence?
Anything that you ask if he can do, yes. Anything that you anything that you could imagine that he can do that and more. He's above anything that we use to understand things.
Gotcha. So you think a non-existent thing has the power to bring itself back into existence?
God, yes. The only thing that could possibly ever do that is God.
That's nonsense. Non-existent things don't bring themselves into existence. Non-existent things don't act on existence.
Okay, so do you honestly believe that you know everything in the world? You know everything.
No, of course not. But
Okay,
what I do know is
so
that contradictions don't exist and that God is contradictory.
know the little stuff that we have on earth, do you possibly believe that you could understand or even begin to understand the being of God, something that is completely above us? We can't even understand how whales communicate. We can't communicate with whales, but we know that they communicate with each other. We can't even do that, but you think that you can understand something that is completely above us.
Yeah, just based on two facts, right? That contradictions, logical contradictions, don't exist in reality, and that God is logically contradictory. That therefore God doesn't exist in reality. So I understand. I don't know everything, but I know enough to know that God isn't real.
No, the things you understand by logic. Something that cannot be explained by logic makes it above your understanding, above human understanding. We're not supposed to understand God to the fullest extent. He's above us.
The things that transcend logic, the things that violate logic, are the things that we refer to as illogical. So if you want to have an illogical belief, you're welcome to have an illogical belief. I'm just not really interested in doing that to my worldview. If you believe in illogical things, then anything is possible, actually. It could be the case that, like, you start playing like a saxophone and then like a tiger comes out of it at that point.
No,
Like the world is
like
just
I said,
nonsense.
logic is what we use to understand the things on this earth, the things that we can see and feel. That's not something that God is. He's not bound by those rules. So of course we wouldn't think of, oh, the lion out of the saxophone. No, that's never our point. The only thing that's not bound by logic is God. He's the only exception. Everything else that we use to get by in day-to-day life to understand the things that are on earth are bound by logic. He's not.
Does God have the power to make the sun both exist and not exist at the exact same time?
Anything that you ask if he can do, he
Gotcha.
can.
So then you think it's possible that the sun both exists and doesn't exist at the exact same time, which means you now think anything is possible. So you actually do think it's possible that you could be playing your saxophone and then a tiger comes out of it. Your worldview is just nonsense at that point. Like you think anything is possible. Like
Because
you
it's
could,
not.
I could drop this
That's
marker and then it could turn into like a boa constrictor. Like in your worldview, literally anything is possible.
He can. Just asking what he can do. Yeah, he can do things that we don't understand. I'm not saying that's how the world works, though. I'm saying that's what's God able to do.
Yeah, that's but if God controls the world, then that is how the world works, actually. Because you think that God's plan is like so much higher than ours that we don't understand God's plan. That means that we actually don't know whether God would or wouldn't turn my marker into a boa constrictor right this very second. We have no idea. Which means that the probability that anything happens is going to be the same probability that God wills it to happen at that point, which means that we can make no statements about reality because reality, all the truths about reality are just whatever God wills them, and of course we don't know that. So
Okay,
we just like
never
lose our
said that
ability to do anything
is
at that
happening.
point.
We said we never said that anything is happening. We said that God can do anything because he's like beyond, yeah, all powerful and with a like above anything that we could understand. That doesn't mean that's the way that he made the world work. That's a redundant argument.
And another point, just because he can does not mean that he will.
Do we understand God's plan?
Because he can, just because only God knows.
So then it could be a part of God's plan that all of this nonsense happens. It could be a part of God's plan that like the entire like lower half of the earth got teleported into non-existence for 5 minutes, and then God like teleported it back into existence. At that point, when God can just do like these illogical things, we can't make any claims about reality at that point. Like our ability to know anything just completely collapses.
He could make anything happen. He could do anything that he wanted to do.
Yeah, and that's just nonsense. If you affirm logical contradictions, then your view is nonsense. If it can both be true that the sun exists and doesn't exist, then anything can be true.
It is nonsense to humans because
Yep.
we cannot do things like that. We cannot do things like
So
that.
you agree-
But
you agree God is
being an
nonsense.
all-powerful person can do whatever he would like to do. If he wanted to burn the whole universe down and recreate it again, he can do that. He can do whatever he wants
Wait, so just to be clear, you agree it's nonsense?
to humans.
Yeah.
So to you, do you agree that it's nonsense? That all of this stuff is nonsense to you?
If I blew out of a clarinet and a tire came out, yes, that's crazy.
Yeah, gotcha. So as long as we agree that your God is crazy, then that's fine.
How does that mean that God is crazy? The things that he can do are crazy by
Because-
our logic.
because
by
we're
the way we
humans.
work in the world that he wait, can you let me talk?
Yeah.
The things that we do in our world, things that how he constructed the earth to work. Yes, that wouldn't make sense for us. That wouldn't make sense for us. But we never see God do any of these nonsensical things that you're talking about. They're only nonsensical because we can understand it through the human ability. But from God's ability, yes, that makes perfect sense because he can do everything. He created everything. This is the sentiment of it.
So if I presented you a contradiction in God's in anything about God, if I presented you like a Bible contradiction, like a direct Bible contradiction, if I presented you like any kind of anything, none of this would be evidence that God doesn't exist. So you have now put yourself into this box where there is nothing that could possibly be presented to you. Nothing possibly. No situation where you could ever possibly no longer believe in this.
He said, is there a way that we
If
could...
he presented contradictions in the Bible, even if he did that, he's saying we would still believe in God. It doesn't matter what humans have wrote. There's big truth to the Bible. Just because you can find a contradiction in words, plus it's a language that still isn't understood. Like there's multiple translations, so even if you can find that, that's still human error. That doesn't contradict God being exists.
Wait, but if I did find you a contradiction with God, would that be enough for you to conclude that he doesn't exist?
If you could, absolutely. If you
Oh,
could,
sure.
but I know that.
Oh, that's fine. Well, then God actually is constrained by our human logic, that if God is nonsense, then that means that God doesn't exist. So you think that God has the power... Oh, okay, wait, I can actually present you an easy contradiction because you just affirm all of the omniscience paradoxes, or omnipotence paradoxes. So does God have the power to make a rock that he doesn't have the power to lift?
Does he have the power? There's no rock that he can't lift.
So then God's not all-powerful?
What? I said there's no rock that he can't lift.
Yeah, so then God doesn't have the power to make a rock that he can't lift. So God lacks a power, specifically the power to make a rock that he can't lift.
No, not necessarily.
So then God
Can
does
you
have
explain
the...
to me why it's valid?
So does God have the power to make a rock that he doesn't have the power to lift?
No, that's a contradiction.
Oh, wait, but I thought God existed outside of logic, that God could do illogical things.
That statement is a contradiction.
Wait, but I thought God can do contradictory... It's contradictory to your human logic, not to God. I thought God existed outside of logic.
He's trying to say like if God created a rock that he wasn't able to lift, Is that not a contradiction that would say that he's not real?
I don't see how that's a contradiction that he's not real.
Just that contradictions aren't real. Wait, so which one is it? Does God exist outside of our human logic?
Oh, wait, hold on, you're going off. I never said the contradictions aren't real. I said that's not a contradiction that proves that he isn't real.
Wait, do you want to... Okay, so then the contradiction would just be that God is both not confined by logic and also confined by logic. There's the contradiction.
My logic, to my understanding, is still above my understanding.
So, okay, then can God make a rock that he doesn't have the power to lift?
He could if he wanted to.
Oh, gotcha. And then could God lift the rock that he doesn't have the power to lift?
If he decided that he wanted the power to, he can.
Okay, without deciding that he wanted the power to, does God have the power to lift the rock that he doesn't have the power to lift?
Yeah.
Yep.
'Cause
Gotcha.
that's him deciding that he
So,
wants to.
so then the contradiction is that God has the power to lift the rock that God does not have the power to lift. That's the contradiction.
He is perfectly
human
rational.
logic, yeah.
Look at this person. God has...
The same point stands. It's by human logic. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, but he's not bound by that.
So I presented you a contradiction to God's properties, and you said if I presented them one of those to you, then you would agree that he doesn't exist.
No. Okay, so yeah, that's not exactly what I meant. I said something that's by human logic. Yeah, if it's a contradiction under human logic, then that still doesn't apply because he's not bound by human logic.
So what do you mean by contradiction? What type of contradiction would convince you that God doesn't exist?
I feel like we're talking in circles. I would like to move on to our next
Gotcha.
point.
Yeah, I'd probably want to move past that one too. Yeah, what's up?
Alrighty. So, it was this whole free will and cancer thing that you guys were talking about.
Yeah, go for it. What's up?
So, you guys mentioned like, oh, if God, loves us and he's just all perfect God, why doesn't he just, get rid of cancer? Why is he making people, die from cancer? And you said something about a 16-year-old boy who didn't get to live his life and all this other extra mess. So, I just wanted to mention, like, when there was just Adam and Eve, they had everything that they needed and they were perfectly fine. It wasn't until they decided that they wanted to know right from wrong and they disobeyed God that we fell from grace.
So why did dinosaurs have cancer if dinosaurs existed 66 million years before humans did?
Do you have any evidence that proves that they didn't have cancer?
Oh, no, we literally have dinosaur bones that have cancer. Yeah, we have tons of evidence that dinosaurs had cancer. Yeah, absolutely.
Look that up.
Wait, what does that have to do with anything?
Right.
Yeah, so,
It's
okay,
still-
because you're saying that cancer comes from Adam and Eve, but if cancer existed before humans
all the
existed,
sickness, all the suffering.
so do you think
People
the
don't
dinosaur with
suffer.
cancer didn't suffer? You think it was like some of that like non-suffering type of cancer?
If cancer existed before humans, when humans were first brought to this earth, there was no suffering for us until Adam and Eve knew right from wrong. The fall from grace, where now women could die from childbirth. Women have pain during childbirth. Women suffer from monthly periods. All of this stuff got brought up onto us. All this suffering, all the pain, all the diseases, all of that was brought on us as a punishment from the fall from grace. We are now exposed to those things.
Okay, wait. So I just want to be clear. So did cancer exist or did cancer not exist before the fall of man?
I never said that it isn't. It doesn't matter.
Did it or did
My
it
whole
not?
point- It did. That doesn't prove that.
I don't have the source. We don't have the source on that to prove that. That's by word of mouth of what he's saying.
Yeah.
Oop, hello?
Can you hear
If
me?
do you want the source? I'd be happy to provide you the source if you're interested in like the source for dinosaur bone with cancer. You can put it into any Google engine. The source is just going to come from the Osteosarcoma Institute. Dinosaur bone, osteosarcoma discovered in 77-million-year-old dinosaur bone. So the dinosaurs had cancer, but you think that cancer came from the fall of man?
Not necessarily, but I think we're focusing too much on the specific disease of cancer. I think we're saying that all suffering, all illnesses and diseases that humans seem to have, that we're the only ones with thoughts and feelings, right? Like
No,
all-
what? I'm sorry.
Thoughts-
Wait, so you think wait. So if someone beats a dog, does the dog feel pain?
What? Obviously, I never. That's
You said that
it's
dogs
pain
don't
and
have thoughts and feelings.
emotion. Pain and emotion.
Yeah, you feel
is a-
pain. Pain is a feeling. It's something that you feel.
That's a sensation. I'm talking about.
Do
I'm
you
not
feel
talking
pain or
about
do you not
physical
feel pain?
Feelings. I'm talking about emotions. I'm talking about emotions. You're.
Dogs
those
also
are two
feel
different things that we're
emotions.
referring to.
Dogs feel happy, they feel sad. There's like hamsters who get like depressed if you don't have like another hamster for them.
Would we ever say that?
Okay, no. Okay. My point with that was we're the only ones who probably feel like cancer is something that makes us sad, or any type of illness or disease. The things that the suffering in this world that make us sad, make us depressed, things like that. That's what we're referring to. So just because if you a dinosaur that had cancer, that we're not saying that that's the cause of the fall from grace.
Wait, so I just want to be clear. So
We
you're of
are
the opinion that
talking about humans.
if someone beat their dog, that this dog isn't sad. Is that your opinion?
Okay, let's just.
Well, I
stop
can
for a
I just want
moment. We
like
are
point
talking
blank.
about
Can I get an
humans.
answer to
We are
that question?
talking
If
about
someone
humans
beats their
believing in
dog, is the dog sad?
believing in God. We're not speaking on animals and animals not having feelings. We're speaking on God being real and the evidence of that.
Well, that's
not
like-
if God, not if dogs are sad or not.
To say that we're the only ones with thoughts and feelings is just insane.
We did not say that we are the only
That
ones with
bar
thoughts
for
and feelings. We
bar.
are
That is a
speaking on
direct
our
quote.
thoughts and
Everyone
feelings
heard
as
it.
humans.
Everyone heard you say that. It's a
The
direct
point I was
quote.
trying to make- That wasn't the point I was trying to make by that. I was talking about in reference to suffering, the suffering on earth.
So wait. So you would say when you said we're the only ones with thoughts and feelings. What did you mean by that?
She was speaking on the fact of the thoughts and feelings about cancer. We're the ones talking about thoughts and feelings on cancer. We are talking about humans. We're not talking about, I can't speak for a dog. I'm not a dog. I can't speak for a whale. I'm not a whale. I'm speaking for humans. We are talking about us being humans.
Yeah. So
We're talking about if God is real.
So no, and even that's not true, right? Like there's animals who do have thoughts and feelings about this because, for example, like elephants
that
get. You
animals
literally
do not have
did.
thoughts
So
and
elephants
feelings.
get cancer.
So have you heard? I've never said that animals don't have thoughts and feelings. Do you know when a dog talks to another dog? Do you know if they're talking about cancer?
I don't think they have language.
Do you know if they're talking about cancer?
They,
We do not know what
they
are
sure
talking
don't
about.
have
We do not know
language,
what
so-
they are talking about. We are speaking about humans because we have thoughts and feelings. We
That's
know when
fine.
another
If you
human talks to another
misspoke,
human, we
you can just say that you
understand them.
misspoke.
We're getting off topic.
But
We're
yeah,
talking
it's okay.
about
And if you
God
misspoke, then you can just say that you
not
misspoke.
animals.
So that's fine. If someone misspoke, then that's like
We
totally all
literally
right.
keep repeating ourselves that we did not say that.
Well,
animals
no,
do
that's
not
because
have
you did
thoughts.
say that, and everyone heard you say that. So maybe you misspoke, but.
Like I said, when you addressed that, I said that's not what I meant by saying that. We clarified that moments ago, and you after we made our point, you continued to circle back to dogs having
Well, because
feelings.
so you just keep on doubling down on it. You say because then the explanation for it also wasn't true. It was like, well, we're the only beings who have thoughts and feelings on cancer, but that's not true because elephants get unalived by cancer and then they mourn. So elephants also have thoughts and feelings on cancer.
How do you know that elephant felt sad about the cancer? Did it tell you?
There are lots of different ways. So you can look at their neurochemistry. You can look at the signals in their brains. You can look at just the behaviors themselves. That they have like rituals and like funeral processes.
Had cancer.
Well, yeah. When
Did you
the
hear it say
cancer
that it was-
unalives, regardless of if they understand cancer or not, cancer causes an event, and that event causes them feelings. So they have feelings about the result of cancer, even if they don't understand like cellular biology. They still have thoughts and feelings about cancer.
Like,
He's not addressing nothing else, and he's just.
yeah, you keep going back to
Well,
the
if you
animals. That's why I keep
misspoke, if you
repeating-
misspoke, if you want to concede that point, then that's
She
totally fine.
literally keeps
If you want to, oh, that's sure. So if you concede
wasn't
that,
the point
if you
she was
concede
trying
that,
to
then that's
make.
fine. So then, what's
She
the
was
relevance of
literally trying to tell
this?
you that that's not what she meant to say. I keep telling you that we do not understand animals, and you cannot understand what an animal is saying. If an elephant talked to another elephant, you do not know if that elephant is saying, "Oh, I have cancer." Like we're not talking about that.
But they have thoughts
you
and
keep going back to it, and
feelings.
we're trying to move on.
Yeah, wait. So then, wait. I'm
Let me
totally
finish.
fine. I'm totally
I
fine if you
feel
want to
like
move on to
you
something
don't
else.
know.
That's totally fine. But you just need to like concede unambiguously because you
Like,
keep
keep
on
trying to
you
move
keep on
on.
saying false things. Is the problem? Okay, so
Lord,
what's
somebody
the relevance of any of
Lord,
this to kids with cancer, like a 16-year-old with cancer? What's the relevance?
It was the relevance of Adam. I brought up Adam and Eve and how the fall from grace allowed for humans to have suffering.
Yeah, wait.
That
So do you think?
that now we are exposed to suffering and diseases and other things
Wait,
that
so
could cause us to die.
why did animals
That was
suffer
my
before the
point.
fall of grace?
That
no animals before the fall of grace. Right? Oh, actually, no. Never mind.
The fossils?
she misspoke.
Okay.
Not too much. Not too much. She misspoke. Let's not
Okay.
go down a rabbit hole. She misspoke. Anyway, they didn't speak on animals. We don't know nothing about no animals. We know about humans, and that's what we are speaking on.
Well,
So let's stay on topic.
Well, yeah. The topic is just going to be. It seems insanely cruel that there would
About
be like
humans
these
and God.
these
Humans and God.
hundreds of millions of years of
don't know that,
like
mister.
animals
We're not gonna
viciously
speak on
tearing
animals.
each other to pieces
And
before
what does
the
that
fall
have
of
to do
grace,
with
because there was like
humans and
tons
God?
of there was tons of
What does
suffering.
that have to
Why
do
would
with
God
humans
want
and
all of
God?
this pointless suffering?
Why does that? What does that have to do with?
Well, that
humans and
just
God?
proves
You
that God
disobey
isn't
God,
real.
you will- all right.
That just proves that God isn't real.
It don't.
It does, right? Because if God's perfect, then he would have created nature in a perfect way. But unnecessary suffering is imperfect, which means that there would be no unnecessary suffering. But there is unnecessary suffering if for 500 million years, animals are tearing each other to shreds. Oh, they ran. It's the 2v2 and they still ran. Or the 2v1 and they still ran. Yeah, we got a running Randy. And a wheeling Walter over there. I accept both of your surrenders. Folded like a chair, scrambled like an omelet, reformatted like a hard drive. Get your ankles absolutely shattered. You will never debate again. What do we got? Grace, thank you so much for the $6.66 on Venmo. Hail, Grace. Hail, 666, and a big hail, Satan. Shirley, thank you so much for the $25 on Venmo. Thank you so much. Animals do experience everything that humans do. Let's get a big W, Shirley, in that comment section. I appreciate the hell out of that. And again, Shirley, for the $25. Thank you so much, Shirley. Animals experience everything that humans can. Absolutely, they do. Another big W, Shirley, in that comment section. Let's get some big W, Shirley, for the $50 on Venmo. I appreciate the hell out of you. Cameron, thank you so much for the $2 on Venmo. That guest certainly was reformatted. Big W, Cameron, in that comment section. Thank you all. If anybody else wants to support the stream, the Venmo's allegedly-Ian. Cash App is just allegedly Ian. If you want to support but you can't donate for whatever reason, something that you can do, you can go and subscribe to the YouTube. The YouTube is allegedly-Ian. I'm trying to get it monetized, but I need 1,000 subscribers. I'm at like 500 right now. So if I could get any of you or all of you or some of you, please to go and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that I can actually start monetizing it. I can get that sweet ad money. That would be just so great. Thank you all so much in advance for that. But make sure you're double tapping on that screen. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older, that you believe in the God of the Bible, Torah, or Quran, and that you have an argument which does not involve personal experience. An argument could be like a historical argument, a scientific argument, a philosophical argument, just a reason to think that God actually exists that doesn't involve personal experience. What an argument is not, however, is like lots of questions about like basic science, like, well, explain evolution to me, and explain the Big Bang to me, and explain abiogenesis to me. I think that those conversations are quite boring, but obviously it can include elements of that. But man, if you just want me to give you like basic science explanations, please don't request to join. And with that, we'll go to the next guest. And shout out to all the people on the YouTube and the Twitch. Appreciate all of you. Make sure you're dropping a subscriber or dropping a follow.
Here. And I'm good.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm good.
Damn, that would have been fire.
After bro just said, "Hail Satan."
Oh,
Don't
do we get a runner already?
You should stop watching.
I accept your surrender. Damn, they had that little like internal dialogue. Oh no. Buddy got cold feet, they got scared away. Yeah. I think by far the newborn provided the best argument.
Okay, I know you only want opposition, but I had to come here and just say I love you, Ian. Oh
Aw.
my gosh, I've been watching you. Oh my gosh, you be folding these people like a chair. You be roasting them like they be sizzling on a pan. And gosh, I just love you so much. Had to come in here for some positivity. You are so cool. Okay, I'll let you go on.
Thank you so much. Let's get a big W Jacks in that comment section. I appreciate the heck out of you. That's super kind. I appreciate you. You're very kind.
Oh, hello.
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Hi. Am I laggy or am I fine?
You're a bit quiet.
Oh, is this better?
Yeah. How old are you?
Okay. 18.
And what religion?
Christianity.
Gotcha. What's your strongest argument for the existence of God that does not involve personal experience?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about one thing you said earlier.
Yeah.
Before I do that stuff. Okay, so it was like the demon argument, right?
Yep.
It was, you said something like a demon strengthens someone's relationship with God, and logically a demon should just do nothing.
Yeah.
Like if they, and like an example of a person who was possessed and became atheist.
Yeah. Do you have an example of a person who was possessed by demons and then became atheist?
Yeah, okay. So, I just kind of disagreed with that whole kind of thing. An atheist, no, a demon doesn't necessarily possess someone to make them atheist. That's not the start and end point. A demon, like, things that are divine don't abide through, like, human and logical laws. So a demon wouldn't approach, like, the hindrance and possession of a person in a logical way.
Oh,
Or,
okay.
like, a scientific, like, in the way you're kind of explaining,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh,
So-
that creates a really big problem for you. But if you have more to say, then keep on going.
What problem?
Specifically because the only people who have ever been possessed are people who already believed in demonic possession. Atheists don't get possessed by demons. That doesn't happen. So it seems like demonic possession is the thing that results not because a demon is actually possessing someone, but just because they believe in demons, and then they have like some level of confirmation bias that causes them to pretend like a demon is possessing them, or like think that a demon is possessing them.
So what I was saying was like if a demon is possessing someone or taking over their life, they do it in things that are deemed as normal. For example, let's say like being lazy, but the spirit of laziness can become a demon and become a bigger thing, which obviously through evangelism and things like that are dealt with. But for example, when like Satan approached Adam and Eve and Jesus in the Bible, he never said God doesn't exist to them. He never said that God didn't exist, and like he never tried to make them atheist. He said you can be above God, and he tried to make them above. He tried to make them believe they can be above God. He tried to kind of grant them things of the world and amazing things, and kind of give them this idea of eternal joy and peace through a way that isn't God, through materialistic things. Obviously, he said to Adam and Eve, like, he'd grant them, like, if they ate the apple, they could have, like, the knowledge and the understanding of God and stuff like that. So I kind of, like, disagreed with the point that a demon, a demon's trying to make someone atheist and would just do nothing.
Yeah, so let's talk about like the context of that conversation, because maybe I actually don't disagree with you at all, and maybe you don't disagree with me at all. So the context of that conversation, the beliefs that that person specifically was committed to, was that demons are like a form of spiritual experience that have actually happened, that this is like some people's like evidence that God exists is like the spiritual experience of getting demonically possessed, not just like, well, demons act in this way and that way, and they, make you lazy. Specifically, like demonic possession is what we're talking about. Seems to be pretty different. And I was just pointing out that it's weird that the only people who have ever experienced demonic possession is atheists, or is theists, people who already believe in demonic possession. Nobody who doesn't already believe in demons has ever been possessed by demons. That just has not happened before. So unless you take any issue with any of that, then it seems like you don't disagree at all. And unless you have like another argument for the existence of God, I probably need to move on to the next guest.
Okay, so you're saying only people that believe in God can be possessed by demons?
Only people who believe in God have been possessed by demons. There's the only reports that you'll ever find of people being possessed by demons come from people who already believe that God is real.
Okay.
Well, bye. All right, well, appreciate coming on up here. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older, that you believe in the God of the Bible, Torah, or Quran, and that you have an argument which does not involve personal experience. I don't know if I read this one out, but Kai, thank you so much for the $6.66 on Cash App. Hail, Kai. Hail, 666, and a big hail, Satan. Let's get a big W, Kai, in that comment section. Keep on double tapping on that screen, dropping that follow if you never want to miss a debate in the future. If you're 18 or older, you want to join the community, there's a link to the Discord in my bio. Only request to join only join the Discord if you are 18 or older. If you're not 18 or older, don't join the Discord. What's up? How's it going?
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How old are you?
I am 30.
And what religion?
I'm Christian.
What's your strongest argument for the existence of God that does not involve personal experience?
Okay, so you are an atheist, correct?
Yeah, I'm an atheist.
Okay, so my question is that you believe that we all came from nothing? Human existence came from evolution?
Well, evolution is not nothing, but yeah.
Okay. So if life came from, can you explain to me about evolution?
Yeah, so evolution is just the process whereby genetic diversity occurs. One of the driving factors of evolution is natural selection. The things that have the traits that make them more likely to survive and reproduce are going to be more likely to survive and reproduce. Thus, they're going to be more likely to pass on their genes. Long process where the genes of the organism changes a lot over time, and then we start with like a single cell, go all the way up to 4.5. Or I think it's just like 4 billion years of evolutionary history, and then tada, we have humans.
Okay. But can you tell me the root, like maybe simplify it? What is the root of evolution?
Like natural selection?
Okay, natural selection. Okay. So can you explain to me where we get the emotion of love from?
Evolution.
How does evolution provide love? How does that?
Evolutionarily advantageous to have love, especially if you're like a social animal. If you look at like these like isolationary animals, like the Wolverine does not experience love. It's a Wolverine who eats other Wolverines, probably doesn't experience much love. Like the crab that's like gobbling down on its babies probably doesn't experience much love. But the human baby, who needs lots of care and nurture, is loved by its mother and loves its mother in return. This means that the mother's not going to abandon it, mother's not going to eat it, mother's not going to do one of any like a huge long list of things, and that's like a big evolutionary advantage. It guarantees that social structures are going to remain because people are going to remain in these social structures. If you love people, you're going to stay with them. That's why it's evolutionarily advantageous.
Okay. But how can you explain the idea of family, of love, of caring, coming from a bunch of chemicals?
It's just that we experience those chemicals as the feeling of love, the feeling of closeness, that our neurochemistry literally evolved to process this as something that's like highly desirable.
Okay. So we came from chemicals, correct? We came from...
We are chemicals.
We are chemicals. How can chemicals produce the feeling of love?
I just explained this, but I can explain it again. So via the release of neurochemical transmitters like oxytocin and serotonin, that gives us this feeling of like trust and closeness and like happiness, this like joy that we feel whenever we love someone or are with someone who we love. These neurochemical transmitters release whenever we're experiencing this and like forming our love bond, and they release again every time we're with these people. We experience a strong sense of love just based on the release of these like neurochemical transmitters and the activation of like specific neural pathways. That's how love comes about, via chemical reactions.
Okay. So how do you explain in the Bible, like there's a lot of prophecies that came to pass? There's a lot of prophecies that really did come into fruition. Would you agree?
No. Not any ones that I think are interesting. If the prophecy is like the sun's going to rise tomorrow, I don't think that's very interesting. And there's prophecies that didn't come to pass and will never come to pass. Specifically, Jesus gives the prophecy that this generation will not pass away until he has returned, until he's risen. But the generation did pass away. Jesus' generation did pass away, and he didn't return. So that prophecy didn't come true, and it will never come true.
Okay. So now this is what I'm saying. Now, from the beginning of time, you believe that Earth always existed?
No, I think the universe always existed. I think the Earth is like 4.5 billion years old.
Okay, so the universe always existed. Okay. So you don't believe that there is that there could be something outside of the universe to create?
I don't have a reason to think so. Oh, I don't think the universe can be created. If something's outside of the universe, if there's like, that's like a philosophical question. If there's like, for example, numbers might be things that exist like outside of the universe, just as like abstract objects, like they're not physical matter or whatever. But I don't know, like certainly not, I don't think a God exists. I don't think a creator exists, nor do I think the universe can be created.
Okay, but you're going by logic. Now, earlier you was saying that you're going by logic, okay?
Are you not?
I am going by logic as well. I believe that God is logic, okay? Now, let's talk about hatred. Let's talk about people sacrificing children and all of the evil things that go on in the world. Where do you think that powerful of an emotion comes from?
Hatred?
That hatred. Yes.
It's also going to come from evolution. Hatred, things like anger, make you a lot more suited to do specific tasks, like an aggressive task. Like getting angry is a really good motivator to do things. So you're probably a lot more likely to survive if your failures make you angry. You're probably going to use that anger and attempt to like rectify the issue. So there's evolutionary reasons why we get angry. But you're just like pivoting all over the place. So is there...
Okay. No, my point is, so people who think that... So do you think like people who sacrifice children or do evil things like that in that nature, do you think that's good or bad?
I think sacrificing children is bad, actually. Do you think when God commanded the Israelites to slaughter the Amalekite babies in 1 Samuel 15:3 that was bad?
God demanded that?
Yeah, he said, go now, slaughter their men and women, children and infants, camel and sheep. I think cattle and donkey was the last one.
Right. No, I agree with you that God did that. But do you think that comes from... So what is bad?
Do you think that was bad?
I think that was evil. That's evil.
God did evil? Your all good God did evil?
God allows evil.
But God commanded this evil.
God gave us free will.
God commanded them to do this. Were they supposed to go against God's command?
No, they wasn't. God did command them to slaughter children.
Do you think Hitler is innocent because all the people, they all had free will? All the people under him had free will and they could have just like chosen not to do it?
No, free will is evil. I'm asking you about evil. You believe that people just do bad things because of a chemical reaction. You don't believe in good and evil.
Well, I do believe in good and evil, and also that what leads someone to do an evil action is because they desire to do it.
So you would just think that someone requiring or wanting to do an evil thing like that is just from a bunch of chemicals.
More or less.
Explain more or less.
Yeah, just that what causes anyone to do any action is just because they desire to do that action more than they desire not to do that actions. So if I desire to stand up right now more than I desire to stay seated, then I will stand up right now. But of course, because I desire to stay seated right now more than I desire to stand up right now, I'm not going to stand up. So it's just about weighing desires, and your desires come about via chemical reactions.
Okay. So all of these ancients, now there's a lot of ancient people in the Bible, in ancient times, even before, that did a lot of rituals, practices, even in a lot of different books. So how do you feel that a belief in God came into play? Who created?
Oh, it's a very useful cope.
this?
I think the earliest conceptions of God were probably from, I bet they're probably from Mesopotamia, but the reason why people believe in God is because it helps them cope. It makes the day go easier. If, there's lots of things that we don't have explanations for, or at least the explanations are very complex. Why believe in the actual explanation for lightning when you can just say that lightning comes from the lightning fairy who throws lightning bolts because he wants to? That's a really easy explanation. That makes a lot of sense if you're not concerned about whether or not it's true. It helps answer these questions that you might not have an answer to. But of course, just because an answer is easy doesn't mean that it's true. Another thing that God does is it helps assuage your fear of death. So it's a very useful cope, but I don't think it's true.
Okay, and how would you do you agree that that there is proof that Jesus died on the cross?
I think Jesus died on the cross. I have no evidence that he
that-
resurrected.
Okay, so the witnesses that were there is not good enough for you to understand that he resurrected?
Wait, witnesses there according to who?
The witnesses in the Bible.
Yeah, and what's the evidence that the Bible is true?
It has over 1,400 references.
Where?
From different people from all walks of life, from witnesses.
Wait, so where? Where can I read these witnesses?
They're in the Bible.
Gotcha, okay. So the Bible is true because of the witnesses in the Bible. Can you tell me why my power strip isn't working?
Why your power strip is not working?
Yeah, it's not working. I have no idea why.
I don't know why it's not working.
You have no idea why my power strip isn't working, why it's not giving any power, but you think you know.
Because it's not connected to anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's connected to itself. Similarly, I need to connect it to something external to itself, and you need to cite something external to the Bible to prove that the Bible is true.
Okay. So, for me, it's just very hard to believe that love, hatred, anger, procreation, passion, all of those things are created from chemicals, which is basically chemicals don't have emotions. So how could something that doesn't have emotions produce emotions? That's one point I have.
Yeah, it's an emergent property. So how does, if you take a mousetrap, for example, none of the parts of the mousetrap unalive mouses on their own. So how do all the parts of the mousetrap come together and unalive mouses? How is that possible?
Well, that's an object. You're talking about an object that's designed to do something.
Yeah, so I'm just talking about that it has this emergent feature to it that despite the fact that, the spring doesn't unalive mouses, the board doesn't unalive mouses, I don't even know what it's called, but the part, that part of it doesn't unalive mouses, but when they all come together, they do. It's an emergent property. So even if a carbon atom doesn't have the ability to feel or love or whatever, even though it doesn't have this ability, when it comes together in the formation of the brain with enough of the other brain stuff, the neurons, etc., we actually do gain this ability. It's an emergent property.
Okay, but that's not answering the question. How does chemicals produce emotions? Because chemicals are not emotions. That's one point. I know we're going round and round with that.
I just answered that, but okay.
Okay, but chemicals cannot produce an emotion because it's not an emotion. There's a design to that. There's a design to all of that, to love, to hate, to all of those things.
Wait,
That's one of my points.
Is a spring a mousetrap?
Is a spring a mousetrap?
Yeah, is a spring a mousetrap?
No.
Then how can a spring come together with other things to produce mousetraps?
Because there's different parts that create that. But
yeah, exactly. So there's, it's not
about
just
it.
one carbon atom that's creating like the feeling of like love, anger, happiness, whatever. It's the coming together and the formation of the brain that causes all of these complex emotions.
Okay. Even the fact that women create, that women get pregnant and give birth, where did birth come from? From how did chemicals produce that?
Depends what you mean by birth. So if you want to go back,
How does chemicals produce life? Like, okay, I understand
Yeah,
you have
so-
your answer to that. I understand that.
oh, do you want?
But-
Well, do you want the answer?
I'll take the answer.
Yeah,
sure.
so the answer
How
to
does
that, how
chemicals
chemicals produce life, is that all the evidence seems to point to abiogenesis, which believes that at first what came into existence was these like self-replicating molecules, and then these self-replicating molecules gained the ability to have a metabolism, and thus life was formed. We had a thing that was self-replicating with metabolism. We had the very first protocells, which underwent Darwinian evolution and became full-blown cells, which underwent Darwinian evolution and eventually are now humans, in addition to all the wonderful varieties of species that exist.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. And then earlier you talked on being demon possessed, okay? This
Okay,
is what
so
I
we're
wanted.
pivoting again. Sure. Yeah, what's up?
Well, no, I'm not pivoting. I don't agree with what you're saying, but we're going to move past that because I feel like we're going round and round.
Okay.
The situation of possessing people, demons possess people in many different ways. Demons possess people with being narrow-minded. Demons possess people with being lazy. Demons possess people with lust. There's many different ways. Just because an atheist never got possessed, like physical possession,
That's
like
the
exorcism.
That's the only type of possession we were talking about in that conversation. All this other stuff is like beyond the scope.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, what do you feel is our purpose? If we don't have a creator or a design, why are we even here?
Oh, that's up to
What does
you.
atheists believe
You
that?
know, purpose is entirely subjective, in the same way that the purpose of a hammer depends on who's using it. Your hammer could be for squashing bugs or hammering in nails, or you could flip it around, pull out nails. It could be the perfect size to like put under like a table. It could even out your table. A hammer, the purpose is entirely subjective based on what you want to use it for. Your life, the purpose of your life, that's up to you. You can use it for whatever you want to. But I think that it's more purposeful to find things that you actually enjoy and then pursue those things, rather than wasting a lot of time with like an imaginary friend at like a group with like a bunch of other people who believe in the same imaginary friend. I just think that you're going to be the better dictator of your life's purpose than like a Bronze Age fairy tale.
Okay. And was you always atheist or time?
I was atheist, and then I encountered logic, luckily, and then no more. I was no longer an atheist after that.
Oh, you're saying you are an atheist though.
Yeah, I'm an atheist now, but I'm sorry, I used to be a Christian, and then I encountered logic, and then I turned into an atheist. Someone presented me
Okay.
with an argument, and then I agreed that God actually couldn't exist, given that all the stuff was true, and then
Okay. Can I ask a personal question?
I guess.
Okay. Did anything ever happen to you like a loss of a loved one or anything like that?
No,
that
life was great up until
hard for
that
you?
point. No, or I mean, even after that point, life was great. No, nothing bad happened. The only thing that happened that caused me to change my mind was someone
what made you
engaged with me
decide-
logically
yeah,
on the issue. Someone, gave me an argument, and then I folded immediately because the argument was just obviously true.
Okay. Okay, got it. Okay, so my next point is that God brought something out of nothing. God I believe that God created the earth because even the asteroid, let's say there was the Big Bang Theory, I believe that God designed that, okay? And there's no proof to say that he didn't design that.
Why would you want to? Okay, wait. So, you know, I'll give you an analogous example. Let's go back to like the lightning fairy. You know, we could say that the exact reason why lightning happens, like the chemical reaction involving like ions and whatever, like striking downwards like very rapidly, that's all true. But the thing that actually triggers any lightning bolt is actually just the lightning fairy. Why would we want that explanation? Why would we add to the explanation when like the addition to the explanation doesn't actually do anything? Like, why would I want to believe in a supernatural entity when natural entities can explain everything perfectly well? I just don't know why I would want to add like an imaginary friend to my worldview.
Okay, so well, because God is outside of time, okay? But let me make another point. If we was all here from a chemical reaction, can you please explain why before people pass away, or many people, millions, you could go on YouTube and Google near-death experiences. There is millions of people. I'm not going to over-exaggerate to say millions, but there's thousands of people that say that they see flowers singing. They all see the same thing.
They don't.
That flowers are singing.
That's not true.
And that, but you go and Google it.
Yeah, so
go on YouTube it.
Yeah, I've already Googled all this stuff. So near-death experiences are just shaped by the cultures that you reside in. This is why Hindu people see Vishnu. This is why Christian people see Jesus. People see in their near-death hallucinations, the thing that they see is going to be entirely determined by the culture they reside on. Never before has a Hindu person in their near-death experience, you know, when they're like living in like India, for example, never before have they seen Jesus in their near-death experience. Never before has like the Christian who has no idea about Vishnu seen Vishnu in their near-death experience. These hallucinations are just a result of our brain.
No, I'm not talking about the God that they seen. People, even who weren't Christian, seen flowers singing. They all say that they see flowers singing. How can you explain that many people seeing the same thing from a near-death experience?
Do you have any sources on this, or is it like literally just like Google it?
YouTube.
Okay, so do you have like a
There's
real
hundreds of
source, or
different
is it just
videos.
like YouTube anecdotes?
What's an anecdote?
It's like when you give like a one-off, two-off story of like, well, my friend said this, like the YouTube video said this, instead of like, well, according to this data, which analyzed like 1,000 different cases and found this to be the outcome. Now, if it was true that every single person who has a near-death experience saw flowers singing, then certainly there would be like a study on this. Near-death experiences have been studied, yet weirdly, I don't think you're going to be able to produce a study that says that this is present in all or even most or even a lot of people.
Yeah, that still doesn't answer my question. Okay, so you're going by logic and you live in logic. Okay, that's fine. So you don't. So whenever you get happy or excited, excuse me for saying this, but what makes you look forward to anything? What causes you to look forward to?
Because I enjoy doing things. I enjoy talking to I love my friends and family. I love these kinds of conversations. I find it intellectually stimulating to read up about like religion. Because I find these things rewarding. That's how I look forward to doing anything and everything.
Okay, so you enjoy arguing about the religion.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it.
Okay, so you enjoy arguing about something that you don't believe in.
Yep. Someone has to.
Okay. Now, so the whole point of us being here is just we're here, and our purpose is up to us. We all have our own faith, right?
Well, I think faith is like an illogical construct. I think that
How come?
you shouldn't believe in anything without evidence. Oh, I'm sorry. You cut out for a second.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So explain how some people have a plan to do something, or they have a will to do something and it doesn't work out. If we can control life, that you do believe that, right? You believe in like control and like we are our own like manifestors and stuff like that.
I think that I don't know what you mean by control. I believe that we have control over our actions, that we have, you can affect
do
the
you
outcome, but
believe-
certainly, like,
you-
yeah, just because you want something doesn't mean that you can just get it, because if you really want something, if something's desirable, lots of other people probably want that thing too. And lots of things that you want require the permission of another person. For example, if there's a person who you have like a crush on, they're really attractive, just because you want this doesn't mean that you're actually going to do whatever you intend to do with this person unless they want the same thing too, absent like horrific actions. But
So okay, so do you believe? So you believe that we are in control of our own destiny? Yes or no?
to an extent, I think that you control your actions.
Control your actions. Okay, but how about your destiny?
I think that I don't really believe in a destiny, but what I do believe in is that you can make decisions, and that some decisions are better than others, and that typically the outcome of your life is going to be your starting place and also the quality of the decisions that you've made. So I don't know. All you can do is make like high quality decisions for yourself.
Exactly. So can you explain why many people set out to do something and have plans and then it doesn't work out? Can you
Yeah,
explain
there
that?
could. So first of all, lots of these people don't make like the perfect decisions. It depends on the goal, right? So if your goal is to like get a driver's license and you do everything right, then certainly you're going to get the driver's license. There's very few scenarios where you're not going to get the driver's license if your goal is small. But if your goal is really big, if you want to become like the biggest YouTuber in the world, then this goal is one that you're not going to achieve, or at least it's very unlikely to achieve, because there's a million other people who have the exact same goal as you, and a lot of these people are probably working twice as hard as you are, and some of these people are working even way harder than that to get this goal. And at a certain point, it's just luck. If you're putting in all the work, putting in all the effort, if your goal is like insane, if your goal is to like, I don't know, become like a Supreme Court justice, you need to be doing everything right, and then at that point it's just going to be luck, basically, because you're already doing all the right things. So I don't know. People
So
can
you
set out
have
for
to-
their goals, and then they can just like fall short of their goals all the time. Happens all the time.
So there's many of talented people who work very hard but still did not become famous. Okay?
Yep. Yeah, because
So, and that's
becoming famous
because-
is hard. These things are hard.
But you just said that if you really do it and you do all the actions right and you never give up, it's achievable.
Yeah, sometimes. I actually said the opposite of that. In fact, I said that it becomes a lottery. If your goal is like something that's really niche, if your goal is to like just become famous generally, that's, not a lot of people are famous. There's only a handful of people. So you'd be one out of like, I don't know. I don't know how many people are famous. Let's call it like maybe like 5,000 out of like 7 billion. So the odds are just heavily against you.
The odds are heavily against. Okay. So can you explain to me why so everything that happens is by luck? You believe in luck?
Kind of. Not really. I believe in chaos theory, which is like a branch of mathematics, that there's things where it's just not possible to predict the outcome. I wouldn't say that these are like lucky events, but I'd say that there are events where you can't really predict the outcomes. I believe in that.
Okay. So it really sounds like on here that you're not even open to any fact that God is real.
Of course I am. You just haven't presented any facts that is like compelling that God is real. I just think that all these facts have natural explanations to them. All of our emotions have natural explanations for them. There's an evolutionary reason for literally all of our emotions. A really good evolutionary reason too.
But this is what I'm trying to explain to you. I told you earlier that God is outside of time and God is outside of the universe. Okay?
Okay.
Would you agree that that is possible?
I don't think that the universe could possibly be created. I have logical reasons to think that time has always existed.
Go ahead and tell me that.
Yeah,
please.
so just that so beginnings are things that happen in time, which means that time itself cannot have a beginning, because that means that it would need to, if time has a beginning, then that would be like an event that happens at like a specific time. So in order for time to begin, time must already exist. But if time has not begun, then time doesn't exist. Which means that if time had a beginning, if it needed a beginning, then it would never have existed in the first place. But it does exist, which is how we know that it didn't have a beginning.
Right, but time. Okay, so you're saying there was never a beginning to anything. It just was.
To time, there was never a
Everything just
beginning.
was.
To the universe, there was never a beginning, but there are certainly beginnings to some things. For example, there was a beginning to this conversation.
Right, of course. But God, it says that God is eternal. So what proof do you have that God is not real?
Yeah, just that if time has always existed, that means that God couldn't have created it. Because if something always exists, then it can't be created.
Yes, but God always existed.
Yeah. So then you would just have time always existing, and, the fundamental fabric of reality is space-time. So if time exists, then so too does space. So we have time and space existing forever. That's the universe. That means the universe has always existed. If the universe has always existed, that means it hasn't been created.
But it also says God is eternal.
Yeah. That doesn't change anything. So you would have to believe in like a God who didn't create the universe.
Are you open to the fact that God is the universe?
That just wouldn't be God at that point. If you want to define the universe as God, if you want to define God to be just the universe, you can do that. Nothing stops you from doing that. That's just not what I mean when I say that God isn't real.
Okay, so now how do you believe that light came into existence? Do you believe that there was darkness and then light? Or you believe they always coexisted? Light and darkness?
I don't think I know the physics on that well enough to give an answer to that.
Okay. That there was that light you don't know if light existed first or darkness existed first. Is that right?
I mean it's kind of weird because the universe has always existed, so I actually don't think that there was like a first one.
So I'm sorry. Do you believe light always existed or no?
Yeah, I would probably hold that light always existed, yeah.
Do you have proof of that?
Yeah, just that the universe has always existed and that light is a feature of the universe.
Okay. So can you just please provide me? I just want to hear one thing from you.
Yeah.
Prove to me that God doesn't exist.
That your God doesn't exist?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Your God said that slavery is okay. That doesn't seem very just. Those aren't the actions of an all just God. Those are the actions of a quite evil God, in fact. A God who says that slavery is fine.
Well, you're talking about the Old Testament, okay? Now, slavery, I'm going to talk about slavery. Slavery, God did not do these things, okay? Because we also believe that there is a Satan and that there is evil. God allows, and God gave us free will, okay?
Okay, so there's literally a verse that says that God gave slaves to Abraham. The verse is Genesis 24:35. It's claimed that God is responsible for the slaves that Abraham has.
Repeat that, I'm sorry.
In Genesis 24:35, I believe. It literally says that God has given Abraham male and female slaves.
Can you read it to me?
Yeah,
please?
sure. Let me pull up the
Word
verse.
for word.
Genesis 24:35. Yep. NRSVUE. Let's get a real version of the Bible up and going. The Lord has greatly blessed my master, and he has become wealthy. He has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, male and female slaves, camels and donkeys.
Okay. So slaves back then were servants.
No.
Okay.
You don't beat your servants. You don't grape your servants like Abraham did to Hagar in Genesis.
But who said that God ordained him to beat his slaves?
God
Why was
God
that
said
from
that.
God?
That's one of God's laws. God says you can beat
God
your
said
slaves.
it was okay to beat your slaves.
Yes, yeah. Exodus 21:20 through 21. I'll read you the verse.
Let me read that one.
Exodus 21, 20 through 21. When a slave owner strikes a male or female slave with a rod and the slave dies immediately, the owner shall be punished, but if the slave survives a day or two, there is no punishment, for the slave is the owner's property. So it says that you can beat them as long as you don't unalive them. As long as they live for a day or two afterwards, then you can beat them.
Okay. But you're saying here now, okay, so you're saying that that's bad though, right? To
Of
beat a
course.
slave.
Yeah.
Okay. So how is there a difference between good or bad if there is no God?
So
if there is no God, who deciphers the difference between good and bad?
Yeah, you can just be like a moral objectivist about those things. There's lots of positions that hold that morality is objective that don't involve God at all. For example, whether or not someone is suffering is an objective fact of the world. So if you believe that suffering is bad, as it's qualitatively experienced to be, nobody experiences suffering as good. Everyone experiences suffering as bad. So you can hold that the objective standard for morality is suffering, that beating your slave causes lots of suffering. So beating your slave is objectively bad because it causes lots of suffering.
Okay, but who says that it's bad to beat a slave in your book?
The suffering that's present. So suffering is just like specific neural pathways activating. So we can just say that these neural pathways are the badness neural pathways.
But who says suffering? Okay, so again, you're listening to chemicals. So because chemicals say that we are suffering, we're suffering.
Yeah. Well, because you experience the suffering, you're suffering. Don't listen to the chemicals. Listen to the thing that you're experiencing.
The thing that you're experiencing.
Experiencing suffering. Yeah, everyone experiences suffering as bad. Even the slaves who got beat.
Can you look up the root word of bad for me?
The root word of bad? I'm just not. This seems like the etymological fallacy. I'm just not sure what the root word dictates about anything. For example, terrific used to mean terrible, but I can look up the root word of bad. I just don't think it's relevant.
Go ahead.
The Latin root word mal means bad or evil.
Evil.
Yeah, I believe that things are evil.
But how can things be evil if there is no spirit? If there's no God in your book? If there's no devil? If there's no spirit?
Yeah.
How is something evil?
Evil and bad mean the same thing to me. In a moral context, at least, evil and bad mean the same thing to me. That an immoral action is an evil action is a bad action.
But I just don't get if there's no God, who determines what's bad or good?
Well, your brains, your neurochemistry determines what's bad or good just via suffering. That suffering is universally experienced as bad. That present in the experience of suffering itself is a level of badness.
So the root of this, the whole root of this in the beginning. So you're going by apes. If apes say that we're suffering, we're suffering?
No. If our brains if our brains have these like specific neural pathways activating, then that causes us to suffer, and then we're the ones who say that we're suffering because we're the ones expressing this suffering. We say, ouch, or life's been really hard lately. We express suffering in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm. So why would suffering? What is the root purpose of suffering? Can
The
you tell
root
me that?
purpose of suffering is to prevent you from dying, because so you suffer in like a number of instances. It's just your body saying, hey fam, things aren't going too well. You got to stop what you're doing. You got to change this. And there's like a lot of different types of suffering. There's like, you know, the instant suffering of like a really painful thing. And then there's like languishing as well, where you have all of this like anguish and like sadness in addition to your suffering. So I don't know, there's like lots of different types of suffering. They all serve different purposes.
So so there's no plan or purpose to our suffering.
There's no plan to it, but I mean, it exists for like an evolutionary reason, if that's what you're asking for. Suffering is supposed to dissuade you from doing something, that if this action causes you suffering, or if this like circumstance causes you suffering, it's supposed to make you not want to be in that circumstance. It's your brain telling you you shouldn't be here. Quite literally, this is a bad thing for you to be experiencing. It's the bad feeling.
Okay. Well, I asked you to prove to me that God exists.
Yep.
That prove to me that God doesn't exist, and to me, your basis is not good enough.
Okay. So which step of any of what I said do you reject, or unless of course you accept? Are you of the opinion that it was just for God to say that you can do slavery to assist Abraham in getting slaves to, and when Abraham graped one of his slaves, he graped his slave Hagar and she ran away. Do you know who it was who coerced this runaway graped slave to go back to Abraham? It was the angel of God. He came down. The angel of God came down and said, like some kind of fucking reverse Harriet Tubman, came down and said, listen, I know your slave master just graped you, but I think you should go back and continue to be his property. God said that. God came down and said that.
Well, that's Old Testament that you're going by.
It's your God. Was God just when he did that?
Was God just when he did that? God, sure, because the fall of man, when Eve ate the apple, that was the fall of man.
So God was just in telling the slave who was just graped by her master that she should return. That this is a perfect thing for God to do, is to encourage slaves to go back to being property after they were just graped.
Can you explain what the word graped is?
Raped, but I say graped for TikTok terms of service. So Abraham graped his slave Hagar, and then she was so upset by it that she ran away, and then the Spirit of God came down. This is all of Genesis 16. This is literally the entire narrative of Genesis 16. Then God came down and said, hey, listen, big dog, you should go back to your master and bear him his child. And then the Spirit of God convinced this runaway slave to return to being property after she was just graped.
Okay, God allows evil for his glory.
It sounds like God is encouraging evil. God didn't come down and say, hey,
God
Abraham, my
uses
prophet,
evil.
what the fuck? He said, he approached the slave that was graped by his prophet and said, listen, you got to go back. You got to go back to the prophet. I know your property. I know he graped you. You got to go back to the prophet.
God uses evil. He uses it.
Was it evil when his prophet did this? Because nowhere in the narrative is this depicted as evil. It's just depicted as like the occurrence of these things.
Do you know that God created evil? Do you know that?
I don't believe that.
Well, he did. God created evil because he gave us a free will of choice to choose between good and evil.
So then why would he interfere and encourage people to go back to their slave masters? Why would God do that?
Why would God encourage people to go back to
Why
their
would
slave
God
masters?
encourage runaway slaves to go back to their slave masters?
Can you please read me the scripture?
Yeah,
please?
I'll give you the scripture. Where God encourages it? Yeah, absolutely.
Well, where he encourages, I want to hear actually, I mean, I don't know how long it is.
Yeah, I
but
can read you. I
want
can
to
just
hear
read
the
you all
whole
of
story.
Genesis 16 if you're interested.
Yes.
Now Sarah, Abraham's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abraham, "The Lord has kept me from my children. Go sleep with her slave, or go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Abraham agreed to what Sarah said. So after Abraham had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarah, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with her and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarah said to Abraham, "You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me. Your slave is in your hands," Abraham said. "Do with her whatever you think best." Then Sarah mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to Shur, and he said, "Hagar, slave of Sarah, where have you come from, and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress, Sarah," she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her."
Okay, but can you finish the story?
If you want. What context do you think
Yes.
is going to salvage this?
Please.
The angel added, "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count." The angel of the Lord also said to her, "You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he will live in hostility toward all of his brothers." She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. "You are the God who sees me," for she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. That is why the well was called Beer Lahai Roy. It is still there between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abraham a son, and Abraham gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael.
Okay, so it was for a purpose and it was for a plan.
So wait, so you think God was just in saying, "Go back to your rapist who owns you as property"? You think God was just in telling her that she should return to her slave master? That she shouldn't? You think a good thing to do is to encourage runaway slaves to return to their slave masters instead of, I don't know, helping them?
For a greater good and a greater purpose and a greater plan, yes, he allowed it.
No, he didn't just allow it. He encouraged it.
Yes, for a greater purpose. Do you know that God flooded the earth? He flooded the earth in the days of Noah. Okay? So there's a lot of things that God allowed that are evil, but for his purpose and for his plan.
Yeah, that's all like really great, but just to be clear, so you think it is just? You think that it was perfect to encourage this runaway slave to go back to her rapist slave master? You think that was perfect?
I believe that God is just and there's a reason to do everything.
So wait, would you be willing to just say the statement that it was perfect for God to encourage this runaway slave to go back to her rapist slave master? Would you be willing to say that sentence?
If I knew that it was for a greater good and thousands of people would get saved from it?
It's not that thousands of people were saved from it. It's that thousands of people were born from it. That's what God was saying. He was saying that you'll have lots of descendants. So these people aren't saved, they're born.
Right, so that's a purpose and that's a plan.
So why couldn't So why couldn't God have helped the slave, helped Hagar not go back to her slave master, and then just said abracadabra and created like 1,000 people?
He uses people through different things, through his glory. So there's something maybe he wanted to show her.
Do you think like the graping of Hagar was for his glory?
I believe that graping is evil, but I do believe that he allows it for a purpose and for a plan.
So wait, because he was like assisting his prophet in bringing this like to fulfillment.
Again, it was for his purpose and for his plan.
So God's plan includes his prophet graping slaves.
God doesn't have to give people life that are atheists that don't even believe in his existence, but he does. He's not just there, but he gives you a chance.
Yeah, that's your presupposition, not mine. You would still need to prove any of that. So I don't know, if you don't think if you don't think encouraging runaway slaves to go back to their grapist slave masters is a bad thing, or perhaps not even a bad thing, just like not a perfect thing, that there's like a better thing to do than to encourage the runaway slave to return to her slave master who raped her.
It's I'll tell you what's not good or something positive is that God gave you grace, he gave you breath, he gave you life.
I don't believe any of that. I don't believe any of that. You haven't proved any of that.
Existence.
You haven't proved any of that.
Exactly. You deny his existence.
You haven't
and he
proved
still
any
gave
of
you
that.
life.
You prove it.
But let's give it an instance to a creator who created someone who doesn't even believe or acknowledge him. That in itself is sad and is unjust.
Oh wait, so if you want like an easier contradiction, do you believe that I don't think that God is real? Do you think I'm lying when I do this?
No,
Okay.
You genuinely don't believe God is real.
Yeah. So in Romans 1, it says that people who genuinely don't believe that God is real don't actually exist. That the atheists actually do know that God is real. So, if God is real and the Bible is true, then it shouldn't be possible that I don't know he exists. But I don't know that he exists, which means that God isn't real. Because if he was real, and Romans and the Bible was true, Romans 1 was true, then it would be the case that I did know that he exists.
My point is that God is just. His face on people who are unjust as well.
It's not a form of.
He's
Oops, sorry, no. Keep on going.
He's just to people that don't deserve it either.
It's certainly not a form of justice that I recognize.
God bless you. So my point here is that just because that you don't have logical evidence, not everything is based on evidence, okay? If we go by evidence and everything, we would probably die.
I don't think
Just
so.
just because evidence shows something doesn't mean that it's real. Doesn't mean God doesn't exist just because there's no evidence of it.
Oh, I think that's strong. A strong indication, right? It literally says in the Bible that there is evidence. So, if the Bible is true, the fact that there's no evidence is evidence against the Bible.
You just said that you believe in evil. I have never met an atheist that believes that there's evil.
Oh.
I have never met an atheist.
Well,
the
ta-da.
existence of evil. Evil is literally a spiritual realm. Evil.
I don't think so. I think that evil just means the same thing as like morally bad, just means the same thing as like immoral. I think that these words just mean the same thing.
Immoral.
They all just mean like things that you shouldn't do, morally speaking.
What does immoral mean? Can you Google the meaning root?
What immoral is going to mean, it's literally just going to go to like things that shouldn't happen.
Things that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Google immoral for me.
I can Google immoral, but I just gave you what I mean when I say immoral.
But
immoral, the state or quality of being immoral. Oh wait, okay. Not conforming to accepted standards of morality. So it's literally just saying like not moral.
Okay.
These definitions of like moral and immoral are going to eventually run into a circle. There's actually no way to cash it out more than like things that you should do, which of course just means like things that are good, which of course just means like things that are moral. And there's no way to go any deeper than just giving you like a synonym for moral. Do you have anything else, or should I move on to the next guest?
Move on to the next guest, because you are unable or unwilling to admit that there is a God.
Oh no, I just think slavery is wrong.
Despite.
I just think slavery is wrong.
Evidence. Slavery is wrong.
Then-
1000%.
So was God wrong when he said that you can do slavery?
Yes, but God has the right to do whatever he wants. He's the creator of life.
Okay, so
He's the creator of everything.
if God's wrong, then he's not perfect.
No, that's not what I mean.
How can you have a perfect God who's wrong?
God uses evil. God uses evil to carry out his will.
Why would he encourage evil?
Because everybody has a choice. He gave us free will.
So why would he encourage it? Why wouldn't he like put forward his standards like, listen, if you want to inherit the kingdom of heaven, thou shalt not own slaves, but of course like you have the free will to do whatever you want. Like why wouldn't he say that? Instead what he said is like, you can have slaves, it's totally chill. You can be my chosen people and still own slaves. Owning slaves isn't going to bar you from getting into heaven.
Okay, but why would God, why does God allow cancer but then he heals it?
Not all of it.
He heals a lot of it.
No. So we've done studies on this. Prayer actually has literally no effect on whether or not cancer or whether or not like any disease gets healed. There's no evidence that praying for like a group of people actually leads to the disease getting healed.
I agree with you. I agree with you. There is no evidence of that. But just because there's no evidence of something doesn't mean that it's not real, because it's outside of time. It's outside of matter.
Is cancer outside of time and matter, or is cancer inside of all of the patients
Cancer is
with
inside
whom
of time and matter.
for whom prayer did nothing?
Cancer is inside of time and matter.
Yeah. So we would be able to observe the cancer not getting cured by your God at a statistically significant rate.
I'm going to be honest with everybody on this live. I'm not very educated, but I know that God is real.
Okay.
Take care, carry on.
Yep, well, appreciate you
and
coming
go
on up
to your
here.
next.
Yep, appreciate
God
it.
bless.
Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff to try to get this in front of as many people as we can. Let's read some donos. We got Trisha, thank you so much for the $1 on Venmo. Did I say mouses? Mice, jeez. Tracy, thank you so much for the $6.66 on Venmo. Hail, Tracy. Hail, 666, and a big hail, Satan. Let's get that W Tracy spam going. Devin, thank you so much for the $5 on Venmo. I appreciate the hell out of that. Big W, Devin, in that comment section. That's incredible. I appreciate it. Are my mods slacking? Typically, I allow a lot, but, you know, mods, if there's, like, slurs in the chat, you should obviously delete those. Dawn, thank you so much for the $6.66 on Venmo. Hail, Dawn. Hail, 666, and a big hail, Satan. So let's get some W's for Dawn, Devin, Tracy and Trisha, and also for Heath. Heath, thank you so much for the $20 on Venmo. Big W, Heath. I appreciate the hell out of that. Thank you so much. I love critical thinking too. I try to think critically and encourage other people to do the same. If you're in that guest request box, again, make sure that you are 18 or older, or that you believe in the God of the Bible, Torah, or Quran, and that you have an argument which does not involve personal experience. I'd love to hear arguments from science. I'd love to hear arguments from history. I'd love to hear arguments from like philosophy. I'd love to hear any of these arguments as long as it's not a personal experience. And if you want to support the stream, the Venmo's allegedly -Ian. Cash App is just allegedly Ian. If you want to join the community, if you want to learn more about philosophy, if you want to hang out with some like-minded individuals, there's a link to the Discord in my bio. I'd love to see you there. What's up? How's it going, Ryan?
What's up? So you think that God isn't real, correct?
Depends on which God. First, how old are you?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
How old are you?
18.
And what religion?
Christianity.
Yeah, I'm like fairly confident that your God doesn't exist, yeah.
Okay, I understand that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody is held to their own standards and beliefs. Personally, I do believe in God, and not just from my past experiences, but from what I see around me and the total evidence that leads up to God being real.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So what's the evidence around you that you think leads to God being real?
So everything, I feel like everything in this world is just pinpoint perfect. Pinpoint perfect. I feel like there has to be a creator, a leader, someone who has created everything around us. Do you disagree? Do you think that
Yeah,
this all
absolutely.
just happened by chance?
Not quite, but I think that there's so many imperfections in the earth. It's like kind of comical. We have a sun that gives us cancer. We have an earth that does earthquakes. We have diseases like malaria, which have wiped out half of the population. Yeah, there's like so many things that are imperfect about the world. It's kind of hard to find a place to start.
Oh, no, 100%. Like, I understand where you come from. There's plenty wrong with our world, our society, everything that goes into it, going with diseases, essay, like anything like that. But that also goes with morality.
Well,
If you
I
were
cited
to-
3 natural things, so it's not a free will issue, but and I'm sorry to cut you off, but it just seems like you were trying to go to the like free will side of things and like the morality side of things. But the examples I gave were the sun gives us cancer, earthquakes, and malaria. I'm not sure what any of these have to do with morality under like, because it seems like these would just be things that come from nature, and of course God controls nature.
Well, you would agree that these things, you would say, are bad or evil, correct?
I think that these things are tragedies. In my worldview, I'd say that they're tragedies. But in your worldview, if God is responsible for them, then I would say that they're evil.
Yes, I would say that they're evil. And my definition of evil is the absence of God. So when, Adam and Eve, when Eve took a bite out that apple, God said, okay, now there will be an absence of me. There will be morality. There will be free will, free choice. Along with that free will, free choice, and morality came earthquakes, malaria, like you said, diseases. So, I mean, it goes hand in hand. You can't just have free will and then not have these diseases and other things like that go along with it.
Okay, so none of that's true, and I'll break that down for you. We know that malaria existed before humans existed because we have a fossilized mosquito from 30 million years ago. We know that earthquakes existed before humans existed because Pangea was split apart by earthquakes. We know that cancer existed before humans existed because we have a dinosaur bone from 77 million years ago that has cancer on it. So we know that all of these things were features of the world before humans existed, which means that the fall of man can't account for cancer, malaria, or earthquakes because all of these things existed before the fall of man.
That's actually a very good point. I don't have an argument for that.
Okay.
That is a very good point. I still believe in my God. I'm not saying that you are like wrong or correct in any way. I just, if you want me to be completely honest with you, I don't have an argument back for
That's
that.
fine. I don't think that there is an argument. I've given this argument a lot of times. I've never heard a good response. It's just like the closest that you can come is like trying to kick the can down the road. Do you have anything? So obviously, like I think that this is like a strong indication the world's not perfect. Whoa! Who just sent me 5-cent subs? Who the fuck was that? I can't see. It's not showing me who sent the subs, but whoever sent the subscriptions, thank you so much for the 5-cent subscriptions. Welcome to the community. Everyone who received it, I really appreciate you. So do you have like a different argument other than the world being like really great? Because I think that there's lots of things in the world that are in fact quite evil, and that if God is responsible for things like malaria or cancer, then God would be quite evil.
Well, personally, I think that everything happens for a reason. Whether it be an earthquake, and while an earthquake could be a tragedy, it could take the lives of maybe 500, but maybe those lives of 500 could impact another region or another area to help prepare for these hurricanes better, etc. That's how I think of it. While it is a tragedy and you don't want anybody to ever have to go through that, it happens for a reason. While you can learn and you can grow from that. You understand?
Not really. Because, so, do you think that the existence of someone like Martin Luther King means that, like, justifies the existence of racism, that racism creates the higher good of, like, Martin Luther King, thus, it would actually be good for God to, like, create racism?
No, that God never created racism.
Yeah, but I'm just as like an analogy, right? That I don't think that overcoming an adversity justifies the existence of that adversity. I don't think that like overcoming earthquakes or overcoming like natural disasters, justifies the existence of these natural disasters in the first place. Fish, thank you so much for the subscription. Appreciate you being in the community. Like, I think that,
of course not, but
like, we're so
I'm sorry.
the good that it helps us achieve, the good that earthquakes bring about, is that we're now better prepared to deal with more of the things that I find immoral that God does. So it seems like we could have just had the world with no earthquakes and no hurricanes, and that would have been pretty chill.
No, of course, like, obviously it'd be great if we could live in a perfect world. God explains that is what heaven is. It is eternal. It is perfect in every aspect. When, like I said though, I'm gonna go back to Eve. God told her, do not take a bite out of the fruit. What did she do? She took a bite out of the fruit. She went against God. So at that point, God gave them whatever they could want. But in that point, when she took a bite out of the fruit, he said, okay, now there will be an absence of me. Hey, someone said blaming Eve yet again. No, I'm not blaming Eve. I'm actually blaming the devil who convinced her to take a bite out of it.
Don't respond to the comments. And I just don't know. I don't know what you think this does for you, right? Because I obviously am just gonna hold the science, which says that earthquakes existed before humans did. Like, why would I want to believe
science and religion go hand in hand?
Oh, but that's not right, because your book makes like tons of unscientific claims. It says that the cap of when humans.
You think miracles are scientific?
No, I think that there's no scientific evidence of miracles. In fact.
Okay.
Do you have any scientific evidence of miracles?
No, that's why they're miracles, because they're not scientific.
Okay. So, I mean, it literally says in the Bible that
it's a higher being. So the reason we can't understand it is because we are not with God. We are not on that level. You know, we are on earth at a moral level. Our moral minds will never be able to comprehend something of a greater being.
Oh, so is God just illogical?
No, I never said that.
So is God logical? Does God fit into logic, or does God violate the laws of logic?
I would say a little bit of both, but that's why it's called faith, because you have to have faith in your creator. You have to have faith in your religion.
Then it just sounds like God's illogical.
So if anything that isn't scientific, anything that is, I'd say, more of a higher power is a little bit he's illogically logical.
So that's just illogical, right? Because that's a logical contradiction. So that would just be a violation of the laws of logic. So
I don't know how to explain this. I'm sure there are other people who are watching who could make a better argument. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like a priest or anything like that. Like, I haven't studied every single everything in the Bible, but opinions and how I feel, and I'm trying to,
that's fine.
Argue that with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But do you have anything else for me, or should I move on to the next guest?
Nah, it's all good. Just know I'll pray for you, man. And thank you for having me on here.
Well, appreciate you coming on up here. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older, that you believe in the God of the Bible, Torah, or Quran, and that you have an argument which does not involve personal experience. An argument could be a couple of things. You could do like a so it's just a claim that God exists and then a reason to believe that. So you give me like a scientific reason, a philosophical reason, a historical reason, any of these reasons to believe that God exists. But please come with like a reason that does not involve personal experience to make me think that God exists. If you want to support the stream, the Venmo's allegedly-Ian and the Cash App is just allegedly Ian. Kaylor, thank you so much for the $5 on Venmo. There's lots of slur spammers. Well, do we have any mods? If the mods wanted to ban the people or like block the people who are spamming slurs, that would be chill. Debbie, thank you so much for the $10 on Venmo. So let's get a big W, Kaylor. Huge W, Debbie. I appreciate that. That's so cool. Thank you so much, Debbie. And thank you so much, Kaylor. That is like awesome, and I appreciate the heads up. Devin, thank you so much for the $6.66 on Venmo. W, illogically logical. Hail, Devin. Hail 666 and a big Hail Satan. Once again, Cash App is allegedly -Ian. Venmo is just allegedly Ian. With that, we'll go on to the next guest. If you want to join the community, if you want to learn about politics, religion, and philosophy, there's a link to the Discord in my bio. I'd love to see you there. It's very educational. You'll learn a lot. Only join if you're 18 or older. What's up? How's it going, Sky Johnson?
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, how old are you?
18.
And what religion?
Deism.
I'm only looking to talk to people who believe in the God of the Bible, Torah, or Quran. Unfortunately, I think it's an interesting I think that your position is like way more philosophically defensible. And if I ever believed in God, I'd be a deist, right? Because like all this other stuff is nonsense. But I unfortunately I don't think deism has much of an effect on the real world as these other religions do. But the
strange thing is that my position is kind of your position because of what you're saying. That's the strange thing.
Yeah, hell yeah, W deism, atheist unity on that front. Appreciate you. But I'll go ahead and move on to the next guest. Let's get a big W to that guest in that comment section. But no, I am only looking to debate people who believe in the God of the Bible, Torah, or Quran. What's up? How's it going?
Hey man, how you doing?
Yeah, how old are you?
I'm 24.
Yep, and what religion?
I'm a Christian.
Yep. What's your strongest argument for the existence of God that does not involve personal experience?
Really, definitely say it's just like the knowing that there's a creator, right? I mean, I think humans are very intricately designed. Like, I don't think that that's just by coincidence, right? Like, I feel like there just has to be something or someone that has created us, essentially.
Sure. So humans are designed quite badly. In fact, 85% of our DNA is useless, and this useless DNA has the propensity to replicate itself and then take away functionality from the non-useless portions, causing like horrible diseases like cancer. So that's like a pretty terrible design. Why would God include 85% of our DNA as being functionless?
Well, I mean, I don't think that was the initial intent, right? Like, I mean, the God of the Bible, right? He created a perfect world at first, right? And he gave us free will, right? So I don't think that was the initial intent for us to live this way. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this argument many times as sin entered the world, death entered the world, right? I think you seem like a very knowledgeable person, so I'm sure you've heard this argument time and time again. But I think the denying the God, like say take the Christian God out of it. You don't believe there's a God, point blank, period.
Yeah, I don't think the universe can be created. But so I do just want to point out, like, in terms of the fall, this like contradicts your last claim. Your claim, thank you so much, appreciate that. Your claim specifically was that humans are designed well, but then you're saying like, well, we're only designed badly because of the fall. So it seems like then you would have to acknowledge that we're actually not designed very well. But that's fine.
No, I mean, I think they can go hand in hand. Why can't they go hand in hand?
Are we designed well or are we not designed well?
I didn't say we were designed perfectly. Like in our current state, I didn't say we were designed perfectly. I said we're designed well.
So much, appreciate that.
Right? Like, I mean, I think we are designed well. I mean, we have all of these organs that function. Like, we have just these systems in our body that function well, that keep us alive, that keep us breathing. We have eyes that we can see out of. We have ears that we can hear out of. We have all of these different things, and I don't think that's just by coincidence. I don't think that you think that's just by coincidence either.
No, I don't, but I think that evolution is a much better account of how these things came about than intelligent design. They work because it's evolutionarily advantageous for them to work, and, you know, they go wrong literally constantly. Genetic mutations happen all the time, which causes, like, any one of your organs to just fail based on mutations alone.
What do you think we started off as then?
So if you go back all the way through evolution, we would be a single cell.
So we just started off as a single cell, and all this just happened. The Earth just came about, and it just popped up.
The Earth already existed when only a single cell existed.
So you think so it's just like all of this just popped up. It's just random, right?
Not really. No, it's governed by the laws of physics. It's chaotic, but it's not
I just think it's funny. I mean, not funny. It's not funny. I mean, it's just here. It's just interesting that you don't even think there's a God point blank period. And so if you don't think there's a God point blank period, then the conversation really can't go any more forward from this point, right?
Well, that's just like the initial claim. Like, I could give you reasons to think that God doesn't exist.
What are your reasons for God just not existing?
Because God said that slavery is okay.
Did he?
Yeah, in Leviticus 25:44 through 46, he says that you can have slaves.
24, 35.
25:44 through 46. Do I have... Oh, yeah, it's over there. While we're waiting for that, Devin wants to know, what is deism? And also, Devin, thank you so much for the $1 on Venmo. Let's get a big W, Devin, in that comment section. Deism believes that there's a God who made the universe, but that he's not necessarily all good or all powerful or all knowing, and that he doesn't have like lore attached to him. So it's not like, you know, the deist doesn't believe in like, the God of the Bible. They think that like God is real, but God could just be like a dude who like created everything and then like fucked off somewhere. That's what deism is.
So your thing is the God doesn't exist because he says slavery is okay.
Just that if you believe in the Bible, if you think everything God does is perfect, then you would have to say that it was perfect when God said that slavery is okay.
I don't think he necessarily said it was okay. I think that that's kind of like a skewed misunderstanding of scripture.
What do you think the verse is saying?
I think that at the time humans created slavery. I mean, I'm sure you know this as well. Slavery was a means of almost welfare back then. It was a means of people would sell themselves into this form of slavery so that they could provide for themselves, so that they could eat, so that they could not die of starvation. Like, this was something that was essentially the welfare system at the time. And any biblical scholar, any historian will tell you that. Anybody who actually studies the Bible and reads the Bible will tell you that they were more so bondservants than they were essentially slaves.
Well, so bondservant is just like literally, if you look up like a synonym for bondservant, it's literally just going to be slave. Second, so there was indentured servitude for some, but this is only people who are Hebrew. As for the nations around them, you could buy any of these slaves. Also, it is slavery. It's owning a person as a possession. That's just the definition of slavery. It says 3 times that they are the possession of the person who owns them. So it's very clearly talking about slavery. Couldn't be talking about anything other than slavery. And it says that you can beat them. I mean, even if all of that's true, why would God say that you can beat them?
I mean, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I definitely say that's definitely a question that I would even pose myself. But as somebody who looks at God, you know, as being the creator of the universe and, you know, giving these people a certain set of rules for their time, I feel like he did what was in the best interest of the people for their time, right? So I guess that's just my position. I know that may not sit well with you or some of the people in the live or whatever, but I believe that God gave that certain set of rules for them just for that time in the Old Testament.
Gotcha. Why would God encourage a runaway slave to return to her slave master?
Oh, you're talking about Hagar. You're talking
about...
why
would God encourage...
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of the same thing. Like, if she went out in the wilderness, a pregnant woman by herself, what were her chances of survival? Probably little to none, right? But he brought her back. And he gave her more than she ever thought that she could probably even have, right? Like, he took care of her, he fed her, you know.
So you're saying that God was... Because, so at this point, she was halfway to a different city, to the city that she was, like, running away to. And there's literally no indication in the narrative at all, no indication whatsoever that she was in any kind of danger. It's just that God came down. And the reason that God gives isn't, like, you know, go back because you're in danger. The reason God gives is, like, go back because if you return to being a slave, then I'll give you, like, all these cool things.
And he did. And she was very well taken care of.
Yeah, so why would God be encouraging people to return to slavery?
No. For God being this evil individual, but if you take a different perspective, you can see that God is trying to make sure that this woman is taken care of. Really.
Wait, so she was.
And finish my thing. Sorry. I also think that the position of saying that she was raped is also very skewed, because that's essentially not what it was at all.
That's like very clearly in the narrative. So first of all, slaves can't consent because of the power dynamics. So there cannot be consent in a slave master relationship. But second of all, she literally expresses anguish, active anguish about the fact that she got pregnant. That was upsetting to her.
What verse says that she was raped?
So we're just gonna, based on the fact that she's a slave. Do you think that a slave is in a position to consent or not consent to someone who owns them as a possession?
I think at the time, them being bondservants rather than just slaves, like maybe we think of in the previous slavery.
What do you think a bondservant is? What do you? I'm just not okay. And I've already said this, but if you like Google bondservant, the definition that comes up is just going to be a slave.
Or somebody who does a certain work for money, right? And they're not being.
So if you Google bondservant, it says a person bound in service without wages, a slave or a serf. Serfs didn't exist because we didn't live in feudalism yet. So if it's a slave or a serf and it's not a serf, then it's a slave.
I mean, like I said, I think if you ask any biblical scholar, you ask anybody who's maybe translated these scriptures over time, you'll see that the context for that time was not what we think of slavery as. It wasn't. I don't know. I mean, I think, like, you think that slavery is just this harsh mistreatment, but that's not really what it was.
Well, so first of all, this person is being, graped, and then in Exodus. Yeah, wait. Do you think? Wait. So do you agree that you can't consent if there's a big enough power dynamic? Do you think power dynamics inhibit consent?
I need to see the verse.
Do you think power dynamics inhibit one's ability to consent?
If you're going to use the
Do you
Bible
think power dynamics inhibit one's ability to consent?
Show the scripture.
Do you think power dynamics inhibit one's ability to consent?
Show the scripture that says.
Do you think power dynamics inhibit one's ability to consent?
Can you show the scripture, please?
Do you think consent can be given if there's just like a power chasm? Do you think that there's like consent between like a Do you think that there's like consent between like a
Sure.
Do you just asking me to show the scripture isn't going to address the thing that I'm telling you?
No, I just need to.
So wait. Yeah. So the scripture is where it calls her a slave. If you are someone else's property, then you can't possibly consent. The power dynamic is just too grave.
I just need to see the scripture that says that she was raped.
The scripture is going to be the part where it says that she was a slave.
That doesn't. Okay.
Wait. So do you think that people can consent if there's a huge power dynamic between them? Do you think that like there's consent between like a boss who says, I'll give you a promotion if you do like XYZ thing with me, and the employee who does it? Do you think that they're like? Do you think God, what the fuck was his name? Who was the guy who? What was it?
My boss managed me.
Was it like a comedian or no? It was like a producer. Who was the guy who did like all the coercive shit? I'm trying to think. Weinstein. Yeah. Do you think that there was consent between Weinstein and all of his victims? Do you think that all of that was consensual?
No, it kind of sounds like rape.
Yeah, exactly. Right, because.
But where does it say that she was raped though? That's what I need to see.
Because there's a power dynamic between them that is cataclysmic. The power dynamic between a master and a slave is like tremendous.
But power dynamic doesn't indicate that she was raped, though.
Yeah, yes, it means that she can't consent if the power dynamic is too grave. And also, she's like literally expressing anguish about it.
Okay, read me the verses that you're basing this on.
Yeah, so the verse that I base it off of are So just that it says that she's the slave in 2, where it says, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar, and then in 4, he slept with Hagar and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. So she got really upset after she got pregnant. So probably an indication that she didn't want to get pregnant. Probably an indication that she didn't want to have sex.
And so he slept with her as he raped her, basically.
Yeah, for 2 reasons. 1, power dynamic is cataclysmic, and 2, she literally expresses like a deep upsettedness when she finds out that she's pregnant.
But you realize it was because Sarah was mistreating her.
And Sarah didn't
right?
mistreat her until after.
You don't think that was going on throughout the whole entire thing?
Oh wait, so
I
if
mean,
Sarah,
you're
if
making
Sarah,
great-
wait, so if Sarah was mistreating her, then maybe God should have said no slaves, or perhaps like don't mistreat your slave. But instead, what God said is that you can mistreat your slave.
Where did he say that?
He says that you can beat your slave in Exodus 21:20 through 21.
Exodus 20 through 21. I think I read this the other day.
Yep. It says that you'll be punished if you kill your slave, but if they recover in 1 to 2 days, then you're fine.
People. You said verse which one? Which verse? 20?
21, Exodus 21:20 through 21. But
So I mean, by the same way, it's possible to make an assumption that she was raped, right? By the same way, is it possible to make that assumption? Is it also possible to just assume that maybe these are the rules that they needed for the time, right? Or is it not to assume that?
why couldn't the rules have been either? So I think that the most just system of rules would have been thou shalt not own slaves, but barring thou shalt not own slaves, I guess like a more moral system than the one God gave is like thou shalt not beat your slave.
I mean, we
So
have,
those
like,
are
the
two
death-
systems that would have been more moral than the one God gave.
I mean, we have like the death penalty, right? Like, are you okay with the death penalty?
Me personally, not usually.
Not usually, but you're okay with it sometimes, right?
I think that it would be like insane. Not in any of the instances where it's been used, but like, I think maybe there's like some symbolic societal value gained by
So do you think
like
at the
sentencing
time
like
there could have
Adolf
been
Hitler to
some-
death, for
So do you
example.
think at the time there could have been some societal value to that, right?
Oh, but then what you're committed to is that your unchanging God thought that this was good, which means that God just eternally thinks that slavery is fine.
I don't think so. I mean,
Does God change?
if you look at, I mean, I think he doesn't change in his character, but I think he changes in the way that he deals with us, right?
Does he change on his opinions about slavery?
Like the same way, you treat a child, right? The same way you treat a child differently when they're 5 compared to when they're 15, right? Like, I think he changes in the way that he deals with his people, because you see throughout. I'm sure it sounds like you know a lot about the Old and the New Testament. Just basically going back to the greatest 2 commandments in Scripture, right? Love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, soul, strength, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. I mean, just in that, you can see that God is not instructing us to mistreat people. God is not instructing us to tear down our neighbor. It says love is patient, love is kind. Like, there's more to the biblical story than I think you're giving it credit for. And I think you know this too.
Absolutely
the
not.
difference between the Old Covenant and the New Covenant. I think you know this stuff.
Oh.
But I think what you're doing is essentially you're taking one story or a couple stories and you're dragging it out and making it seem like something it's not to a bunch of not educated believers, essentially.
Well, that's like a wonderful piece of psychoanalysis, but what the argument is just that slavery is bad, actually. So if slavery is bad, then God did a bad thing, which means that God can't be all good. And all good God doesn't do bad things.
No. I think God didn't create slavery though.
Well, it literally says that God
that was introduced.
So
you said he gave rules for slavery, but you did not say God created slavery.
So
I
God,
think there's a very big difference there.
God participated in slavery, as is indicated by. Where is it? Where's the verse?
I don't think. God created
Genesis
slavery.
24:35. It says that God is attributed with the responsibility for giving slaves to Abraham.
Did he create slavery though?
Why would God give slaves to Abraham?
But that doesn't mean he created it though, right? It doesn't mean he created slavery.
Well, wait, so do you think that the slave masters were all fine? Because even though they owned slaves and beat their slaves in like the American South, do you think that they were all chill? Because, you know, even though they did slavery, they didn't create it, so they're fine?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So you agree that if you engage in an immoral system, then you've done something immoral.
Repeat that.
So you agree that if you engage in an immoral system, then you've done something immoral.
I don't know. It's a good question. I feel like there could be multiple answers to that question. I'm not really sure what my answer would be. I know it's not a good answer, but
I can read you the verse. This is Genesis 24:35. The Lord has greatly blessed my father, and he has become wealthy. He has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, male and female slaves, camels and donkeys. That's Genesis 24:35. So why is God giving people slaves?
I'm not sure.
So it sounds like God is taking an active role both in his blessing people with slaves and also is encouraging slaves to return to their slave masters. Seems like quite cruel.
That's a good question. I've never thought about that one. But I guess, at least to my understanding of the Old Testament, is that slavery it was a completely different thing. So, I mean, for me, when I look at it through that lens, I don't essentially see it as something that was bad at the time, right?
But it's bad, right? Do you think does God change his mind about slavery?
In what way?
So God obviously thought slavery was okay, that you can own slaves and still get into the kingdom of heaven. If I owned a slave today, would I get into the kingdom of heaven?
I guess it would depend on how you treat them, right?
It would depend?
Yeah.
So you think slave masters can get into heaven? You think people who own people as property get into heaven? It depends?
Yeah. I mean, I think it would depend on how you treat them, right?
What's the ethical way to treat a slave?
With respect, with love, with kindness, with patience, with looking at them as a child of God, as somebody who is in the image of God. I mean, you can look at the story of Philemon. He had a slave, and this is New Testament, so this is even going into the New Testament, right? And it says God instructs Philemon to no longer look at this slave as a slave, but to look at him as a brother in Christ, and to love him. So I mean, I think that that's good enough evidence to say that, hey, like, God wants us to not just look at every individual in that lens, but he wants us to look at them like they're somebody who is made in the image of God.
Would you be willing to become my slave right now?
Yeah, I mean, if you treated me with respect.
You would?
You love me?
You would be willing to be... Do you think anyone believes you? Like, literally anyone believes you when you say that you would become my slave right now if I treated you with respect? Do you think anyone believes that?
In what context, though?
Wait,
right?
wait.
Like,
So why don't you just go and like sell yourself into slavery somewhere if you're totally fine with that?
If I needed to be provided for, maybe like some of these people did in the Old Testament, then maybe I would, right?
That's fucking crazy. I just don't think that you believe that, and I think that
depends, right? It all really just depends.
I don't actually. You know, I could have the most benevolent slave masters, and I think me and everyone else would not want to be slaves.
I mean, like I said, I mean, if I needed a place to stay, I mean, You're essentially a slave to your job, right?
No, my job doesn't beat me. My job can't force me to have sex. My job pays me. I can quit my job at any time. We are not in any meaningful way a slave to our jobs.
But you go to work, right? You go to work to get a paycheck.
Yeah.
Right.
I get. Yeah, that's the difference between me and slaves is that I get paid.
And that's what.
And
okay, then so
if one day I
these people were
didn't.
getting paid, they were getting taken care of. So
If
So then
if,
that's
if
what- that's-
so wait, so if one day I didn't show up to work, if one day I was like, wait, like never mind, you
Well, you
know,
said-
my job would fire me, but you know, they wouldn't like show up and like beat me and like drag me to work and force me.
you're getting paid though, right? Like
Yeah. Wait, so are slaves paid?
yeah, slaves were paid in biblical times.
Verse?
Slaves were paid.
Can I get the verse?
Okay, let's find it. Let's see if we can find it.
The verse that says that all slaves are paid. I'm super curious. Daniel, thank you so much for the $6.66 on Cash App for All Hail the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Hail, Daniel. Hail, 666. And a big hail the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Appreciate the heck out of that, Daniel. Thank you so much. Let's get a big W, Daniel. If anybody else wants to support the stream, Venmo's allegedly-Ian and Cash App is just allegedly Ian. I appreciate any and all support. Do you have the verse?
Nah, it doesn't look like I can find one that says that.
Yeah, you're probably
But
not. Yeah.
But I still think there's some weight to like them being provided for and them getting shelter. Like I think there's still some weight to that, right?
Do you think there's some weight to the like slaves in like the 1700s that they got provided for and that they got shelter? Do you think that there's some weight to that?
Some, but I think that they were being mistreated in a way that was not how slaves were treated in biblical times. Like I think you read that beat your slave and you think that every slave was just being beat. I mean, these were people that were owing a certain person money or maybe poor.
Can I get the verse for that?
Maybe just kind of needed the discipline.
Just kind of needed the discipline? You think poor people should be enslaved?
No, but if you're working for somebody and you're doing a job for somebody and you become this indentured servant, like there's possibility for potentially people to take advantage of that, right?
So you think, and I just want to be clear because this is crazy. So you think that slavery is justified because it gives people discipline?
No, I did not say that. I said that could have been a possibility of what could have happened at the time, right?
And is that
like in the same way we have the death penalty for people that commit crimes? Maybe at the time because some slaves didn't work hard, or maybe some slaves took advantage of the system. Maybe they had to be beat.
Yeah, they just had to be beat. Yeah, these slaves just had to be beat. There was no other way. These slaves just had to be beat. I'm moving on to the fucking next guest because that's crazy. But make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older, that you believe in the God of the Bible, Torah, or Quran, and that you have an argument which does not involve personal experience. Make sure you keep on double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, trying to get this live in front of as many people as we possibly can. If you want to support the stream, as make sure you're sharing it with your friend, or the Venmo's allegedly-Ian, Cash App is just allegedly Ian. I would encourage y'all, if you want to support the stream but you don't have any money, subscribe to YouTube. Help me monetize the YouTube so I can get that sweet ad money. And if you're watching on the YouTube, shout out to you, but please drop a subscription if you're just joining us from like the shorts feed. I don't know what the fuck it's called. I'm a TikToker, okay? Leave me alone. But I do love all of you. I love all 14 of you who's watching on YouTube. So consider heading on over. But if you want to join the community as well, there's a link to the Discord in my bio, and with that, we'll go to the very next guest. Make sure that you're 18 or older, that you believe in the God of the Bible, Torah, or Quran, and that you have an argument which does not involve personal experience. If you don't meet that criteria, don't request to join. Give me a reason to believe in God that stems from science or philosophy or like history. Like one of these arguments I love, but yap, not the biggest fan of. If you want to learn more about philosophy, there's like seriously, join the Discord. We talk about politics, religion, and philosophy all the time. I debate people on philosophy, politics, and religion all the time in there. If you want more Ian content, consider joining. What's up? How's it going?
Hello.
Yeah, I can. How old are you?
So, I want to ask you, like, why do you take the Bible out of context in terms of the slavery?
Yeah, let's talk about the slavery. So, well, first of all, how old are you?
18.
Gotcha. And how are we defining slave?
So, in the Bible, it specifically talks about debitors, like in terms of people who owe money or people who can't support themselves financially.
That's not the question. How do we define slave?
So, slavery would be like being forced. I'd say, like, for me, would be like being forced to work, basically, like against your own will.
Do you think kids who you force to do their homework are slaves?
No, I don't think that.
But they're forced against their will to do work.
What do you mean?
Because you're forcing them to do their homework. That's work. You're forcing them against their will.
I mean, like, if a kid a kid can choose to do or not to do their homework. I mean, it's obviously like their choice. It's not like slavery.
Yeah, but like, let's say,
is like using violence.
Yeah, let's say that you use violence. Let's say that you like spank your kid because they don't do their homework to like force them to do their work. Do you think that do you think that that kid's a slave?
No, I wouldn't think in that context. Like, you're just trying to, I guess, help that kid out. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't even resort to violence if it came to that case. But
Yeah, gotcha. So do you want to give a new definition? Otherwise, a kid who you spank would fall under your definition of slavery.
I mean, let me ask you, because I don't know the definition that well. But
So-
what would you define slavery?
A slave is a person who you own as property.
So, you think that in the Bible, like, it's like this, like their property or something like that?
Yeah, it says so 3 times in Leviticus 25, 44 through 46. It says twice that they're your property and once that they're your possession.
Okay. And you do know that the slavery of this time was not the same as the slavery in, for example, like the slave trade and other recent like slavery, right? Like it was because in the Bible, it actually God condemns violence towards the slaves, and actually says if you were to, for example, like, how do you say this? Like, if you were to make them disabled, then you have to let them go.
Yeah, so what else does it say about the way that you can treat your slave in terms of like beating them?
I'm pretty sure you could discipline them in some way.
You could beat them. Let's not call it disciplining. They're adults. They don't need discipline. What you're doing is beating them.
Right.
Unless, of
And
course, you would
another
say that like, they were just disciplining the slaves in like the South in like the 1700s.
Right, but like another thing too is that those people decided to become slaves of those people to pay off debt.
Wait, can I get
wasn't,
the-
like, seen as like kidnapping or forced?
Can I
as
get the
well,
verse?
so- yeah, of course. Yeah, let me pull it
Yeah,
up.
what's
right
the
now.
verse for that? Because that's true of the Hebrew slaves, but of the slaves from the nations around them, no, that's not the case at all.
Let's see. Hold on. So you think in the Bible it like condemns like slavery, like kidnapping to become a slave or something like that?
Well, so it says that you can't kidnap people. I'd assume that these laws only apply to Israelites, but it does say that you can just buy a slave in the very next book. So,
Can you tell me like which book?
in Leviticus 25, 44 through 46, it says you can own slaves; they can be your possession. You just need to buy them from the nations around you.
Leviticus. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the verses again?
Yeah, 25, 44 through 46.
25, 44 through 46. All right, let's see. So it talks about, so buy slaves, inheritance, you can inherit them. And then, and then it says Israelites could work as hired servants, but they were to be treated differently and released in the year of Jubilee. So
Yeah, so some
aren't
could be
these-
indentured servants, and then the rest of them were slaves. So God says you can do slavery.
But I don't know if you read it, but like, doesn't it also like, weren't those people like willing to go like become slaves for those people, and then maybe
Verse?
they were bought?
Can I get the verse?
Like, yeah, because like it talks about, like in the Bible, it talks about how they willingly wanted to become slaves so they can pay off their debt.
Yeah,
to,
so what's the verse that all of these people in the nations around them were willingly going into slavery so they could pay off their debt? I'd love to hear the verse on
Well,
that
if
one.
you can't kidnap them or force them according to the Bible, then how could they be like against their own will, if you know what I
Because
mean?
somebody in the nations around them could kidnap them. If you look at the kidnapping verse, if you read like the entire chapter that the kidnapping verse comes from, it talks about how you should treat your slaves like 3 or 4 times. So clearly they thought that slavery was okay. But even if we take that as like you can't kidnap anyone, then somebody else from the nations around them that don't follow these laws could kidnap them and then sell them to you, in which case you would own slaves and you didn't kidnap them.
So you're saying that like from other nations, were those other nations under, like, did God tell them to do these things? Or?
No, in fact, in later books, God genocides these other nations. No, these nations were not under God.
Yeah, but the reason why, God told Moses to do, like, basically kill these people, and I'm not saying it's okay, because, and not only that, another thing I also want to bring up is that we don't follow most of the Old Testament laws, so a lot of the Old Testament laws don't really
Not
apply
relevant.
to us anymore.
Yeah, no,
We
that's
follow
yeah.
most-
That's
we follow
not
mostly
the
the
argument
New
at all. That has literally nothing to do with any of my argument. My argument is not, haha, you still think that slavery is okay. You think right now that slavery is okay.
Right.
It's that if God is all good, he would not allow slavery ever. He would not permit it. He would not give his like big rubber stamp. He wouldn't say you can do slavery.
Well,
Hello? You cut out. Oop. I accept your surrender. Folded like a chair, scrambled like an omelet, reformatted like a hard drive. Get your ankles absolutely shattered. You will never debate again. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff to try to get this live in front of as many people as we can. If you want to join the community, there's a link to the Discord in my bio. It's a great place. We talk politics, religion, philosophy. There's God Bingo. You can just go into the live chat, do $God, and it'll pull up a God Bingo sheet for you. Only join if you're 18 or older, but it's discord.gg/allegedlyian. I notify you every time I go live. I'm very active. I was hanging out in VC just last night, the night before that, the night before that. I love hanging out in my VC. I love the people in my server. I'm sure you would love them too. The live chat is quite active there, so seriously consider joining. If you want to support the stream but you don't have money, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel to help me get to 1,000 subscribers so I can get monetized. In fact, I'm probably ending stream right now. I'll send you all over to Dean. Dean's live on It's Dean, 2 A's, 2 N's. But please, I'm begging you, hands and knees, I'm begging you, please join the Discord and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's allegedly-ian on YouTube, and it's discord.gg/allegedlyian on Discord. Only join the Discord if you're 18 or older. But I'm trying to get the YouTube monetized so I can get that sweet ad money, but I can only do that if I'm at 1,000 subscribers. Right now I'm at maybe 500, so please consider subscribing to the YouTube. Otherwise, head on over to Dean's, but I love all of you. Thank you all so much for spending this time with me. I loved spending this time with you, and I can't wait to do it more tomorrow. All right, talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.